Chapter 929. The old weasel seemed to have degenerated and no longer spoke human language. Instead, he was squeaking like a wild beast. The people at the side were terrified. This divine teacher had a very high status and needed to rely on his divination ability to come to the netherworld. How could this happen? The old weasel's eyes were very red and his ears were bleeding. He looked a little scary and his body was becoming more and more crooked. He couldn't even sit still. Was he going to be beaten back to his original form? Senior. The group of people were very anxious and impatient. The old heavenly hound quickly took action and injected vigorous life energy into divine teacher Huang's body to help him deal with the misfortune. If he were to completely transform, a divine teacher in the field of divination would return to being a beast. The losses would be immeasurable. Squeak, squeak. Divine teacher Huang cried out with a wild aura. His slightly bald tail with only a few hairs on it swayed back and forth as his body twitched. After a long time, he spat out another mouthful of blood and gradually calmed down. He then let out a long sigh. "Senior, are you all right?" the white-robed youth asked with concern. Although the old heavenly hound and black crow were still old, they were like heavenly blades that had been unsheathed. Their auras were sharp and fierce, and they were both wrapped in astonishing divine light and energy. They were still injecting large amounts of life energy into divine teacher Huang's body. So powerful, I almost fell for it. The old weasel was still in a state of shock. He said that he had been careless and used a secret divination technique that was prone to problems. In the end, he actually suffered such a backlash. At that moment, all his hopes turned to dust and he was almost beaten back to his original form. It was just a small spirit. Logically speaking, it shouldn't be like this. However, divine teacher Huang wasn't angry. On the contrary, he was somewhat excited. His dim eyes gradually lit up because he knew very well what this meant. That spirit has an extraordinary item on him. The others revealed astonished expressions. This was a divine teacher in the field of divination. Not to mention evolution, he was truly unfathomable in terms of divination alone. What extraordinary item could make such a person suffer such a great loss and almost be beaten back to his original form? For a moment, everyone's eyes were sparkling. Fortunately, this is the netherworld and can't be compared to a corner of the world of the living. The order here is incomplete. Otherwise, I really wouldn't dare to make a divination. Divine Master Huang dared to come to this universe because the laws were flawed and the territory was not vast enough. That was why he dared to make a divination in this universe. If he was in the Yang realm, he wouldn't have any way to forcibly deduce the heavenly secrets of such an ultimate artifact, and he would probably die a miserable death. It switched to a different method of deduction. It fiddled with a few pieces of the tortoise shell and began divining again. This time, the method was more reliable. However, he began to cough up blood again, and blood flowed out of his 7 orifices. He began to squeak again, and his eyes became slightly unfocused. Divine teacher! The people at the side were alarmed and frightened. What was going on? Didn't it say that it was fine? How could he be in danger again? If he was beaten back to his original state, he could only ask for help from the Empyrean's descendants. Don't worry, this is a normal backlash, it's not fatal. The old weasel shook his head and recovered. How is it? Standing on the side of the ship, the old crow with scarlet eyes and few feathers asked in a low and cautious voice. I've roughly estimated which star field it is, but I can't determine the exact coordinates, Divine Teacher Huang replied. However, he wasn't discouraged at all. On the contrary, he was very happy. Previously, he had simply gone to deduce 1 or 2 artifacts, but he couldn't even suffer a backlash because he had no clue at all. He couldn't find the location at all. Now, he was actually starting to get close because of a spirit. We're very lucky. I speculate that the artifact hasn't awakened yet and doesn't truly belong to that Een spirit. Otherwise, I really wouldn't be able to do anything. Everyone trembled with fear. A heavenly secret that could protect a person without awakening was in the Yang realm, and moreover, it was in the incomplete small space of the Yang realm. If it was in the Yang realm, even if it hadn't awakened, Divine Teacher Huang would still be powerless. Find him as soon as possible to avoid any accidents. Old Heavenly Dog revealed a cold aura and wanted to make a move himself. As an evolver of the great martial Heavenly Lord's lineage, he hated Een spirits the most. In the depths of the universe, Chu Feng was studying the stone box in his hand. It had a total of 6 sides. At this moment, a few sparkles on one of them had dimmed and became rough again, so he put it away. That was because the quasi-immortal race contacted him again at this time, which made him feel deeply surprised. The 3 ancient saints of this race actually agreed to let him view the breathing technique. What kind of omen was this? He was rather suspicious. The other party actually agreed. Did they want to ambush him? Chu Feng was fearless. He held the green-skinned calabash in one hand and the purple-golden bamboo in the other as he directly hurried over. He wanted to see whether the quasi-immortal race had eaten a bear's heart or a leopard's gall. He wasn't arrogant and didn't set foot on the flying immortal planet. Instead, he let the quasi-immortal race enter the starry sky. The old woman of the quasi-immortal race appeared. Her old face immediately turned green when she saw Chu Feng fully armed. Was he deceiving them? He actually wanted to kill the 3 of them? The other 2 old men with thinning hair also tensed up and felt a chill from head to toe. They also thought that Chu Feng wanted to kill them. You can't go back on your words. The old woman's expression was unsightly. You really brought the breathing technique? Chu Feng was astonished. He suddenly felt that these 3 people didn't seem like they had set up a killing trap to ambush him. However, these 3 old fellows were too spineless. Did they really give in after a single threat? This made Great Demon Chu rather speechless. He had originally thought that these 3 ancient saints would have a lot of integrity. He hadn't expected them to be so cowardly. They directly lowered their heads and were willing to offer the top 3 breathing techniques. Chu Feng's heart was burning with passion because, as far as he knew, the quasi-immortal race was ranked in the top 10 in the Yang realm. This kind of scripture was too heaven-defying. Even if it was only an incomplete technique that could only be cultivated to the Heaven Illuminator realm at most, and even if there were some flaws and some mistakes, it was enough. It could be called a world-class treasure inheritance. Chu Feng's eyes were lush green. They were really glowing with green light. But in the eyes of the 3 quasi-immortal race elders, it was rather terrifying and dangerous. Was this demon going to change his mind? Was he going to massacre them? The 3 of them were frightened and their hearts were perturbed. Oh, give it to me. I hope you won't disappoint me, said Chu Feng. The old woman hesitated for a while, but in the end she still handed over a jade box. There was an extremely ancient beast skin inside, which recorded the breathing scripture of the quasi-immortal race. You really brought it? Chu Feng knew at a glance that this should be true. The beast skin was too ancient, and the breathing technique recorded on it was extremely profound. He was fascinated by it after a cursory glance. The 3 saints cursed in their hearts. King annihilated the deity race, the celestial forest, and the corpse race. Who wouldn't be afraid? You destroyed 3 planets, so how could you not deliver it? If the 3 races hadn't been annihilated, they wouldn't have been so happy. They were very worried that Chu Feng would also wipe out the quasi-immortal race. Chu Feng looked at them askance. He really wanted to say, You 3 old fellows are measuring others by your own standards. Am I that kind of person? The 3 saints looked at him, but in the depths of their hearts they were saying, This demon is vicious and merciless. He's definitely that kind of person. Why is there another beast skin? Chu Feng asked. There was another one at the bottom of the box, and it was also very old. This is an improved breathing technique. It's more suitable for cultivation in the Een Realm universe, the old woman answered truthfully. Good! Chu Feng was overjoyed. In that case, the first one was part of the original version brought over from the Yang realm? If it wasn't for the fact that they were worried that Ing Xiaoxiao would say everything because she was too close to Chu Feng and had misgivings that she had leaked these things before, the three saints wouldn't have been so considerate, even if they were beaten to death. You have to keep your promise. You can't pass it on to anyone else in the Een Realm universe. The old woman emphasized. Don't worry. Chu Feng nodded and said with a solemn expression, the technique must not be passed on to 6 ears. He quickly memorized the densely packed words on the 2 ancient beast skin scrolls and returned them to them. Then, he turned around and left. He didn't want to stay in one place for a long time now. Was it over just like that? The three saints were originally anxious. They were afraid that he would turn hostile and refuse to acknowledge the debt and kill them right away. Their backs were already drenched in cold sweat, but now they realized that everything was so simple. The three of them looked at each other in dismay. They felt that they had been too decisive and thorough in their cowardice this time. From the other party's performance just now, they could clearly still negotiate. The three of them spat out blood and pounded their chests. Immediately, their faces turned deathly pale. This demon had intimidated them and swindled away their sect-guarding scripture. How heartbreaking! Chu Feng disappeared like a wisp of smoke. It was rare for him to be in such an oppressive environment. This was truly an unexpected joy. He never thought that he would actually obtain a supreme breathing technique. He had obtained a portion of the Buddhist race's breathing technique when he was in the foreign realm. Not long ago, he killed a group of people from the Yang realm and found the 9 glories, undying, and more than 10 other breathing techniques that they had collected. He memorized all of them. Chu Feng had an impulse in his heart. This was to give him a chance to evolve again. He definitely wanted to walk the path of the strongest and not leave behind any regret. He wanted to correct the unorthodox path. With so many top-notch breathing techniques in his hands and that old fox's strongest notebook in the foreign realm, Chu Feng was excited just thinking about it. No one in the Yang realm dared to covet the breathing techniques of the quasi-immortal race and the Buddhist race, but Chu Feng had them now. They surpassed some of the immortal orthodoxies in the Yang realm. In addition, he also had the robbery induction breathing technique. After opening the wormhole, Chu Feng changed to another star domain and didn't return to the original small planet. At the edge of the universe, Divine Master Huang wanted to divine once more and try to determine a further range. In the end, he spat out blood and discovered that Chu Feng was no longer in the same place. His face immediately turned green. Did he have to deduce everything again? He would spit out blood every time he made a serious divination. How much essence blood did he have to cough up? If he really was beaten back to his original form, then it would be a huge joke. Oh, I'm fine this time. I roughly calculated that he's in this star domain. Divine Master Huang used his claw to point at the crystal he had prepared in advance. A starry sky appeared on it. This time, Chu Feng didn't activate the stone box. It returned to its rough state and one side was no longer slightly sparkling. Therefore, the old weasel didn't suffer a backlash. Divine Master Huang pondered for a moment and guessed the situation. He immediately became more confident. This was the divination domain he was proud of. If it was someone else, it would be impossible for them to deduce that Een spirit and would be deceived by heaven's secrets. Everyone at the scene felt relieved after understanding the situation and revealed smiles. As long as Divine Master Huang didn't always consume blood essence during the divination, everything would be fine. They believed that Chu Feng wouldn't be able to escape from the palms of their hands. Call him over. The white-robed young man smiled and suggested. As for the old Tiango and the black crow standing on the side of the ship, they were much calmer and didn't plan to look for him personally. All of a sudden, a piece of news appeared on the Black Blood platform. The people of the Yang realm had appeared and were using this universe's platform to release news. A handsome white-robed young man spoke gently and invited Chu Feng to the edge of the Yang realm's universe to drink tea. This is a divine tea produced on the Jade Peak outside the Yang realm's Yuanshe Tianzuan's seclusion grounds. It has an excellent taste and can only be found by chance. He spoke as he brewed tea. His movements were beautiful like moving clouds and flowing water. His bearing was very elegant. At the same time, he mentioned a star domain and pointed out Chu Feng's location. He said that it was too cold there and that they could meet at the edge of the universe to chat. Soon after, an azure-clothed man appeared. He claimed to be a disciple of the extreme martial clan. He was also smiling brilliantly and invited Chu Feng to come over. The starry sky was silent. Everyone realized that the people of the Yang realm were confident in their backing. It was very likely that they had discovered Chu Feng's coordinates. They were forcing him to go over and beg for forgiveness. Come, I'll warmly invite you. Chu Feng, I believe you won't refuse the face I've given you, right? The azure-clothed man said with a faint smile. Chapter 930. When such words were spoken, it was a little too obvious. What did he mean by please? It was clearly a threat, a warning, a serious threat to Chu Feng to go over as soon as possible. The starry sky was deathly silent, and the evolvers of every race were terrified. The people of the Yang realm were too formidable. They could even see through the star field that Chu Feng was in, so who wouldn't be afraid? If he dared to speak carelessly, he would definitely be dragged out, and it would be hard for him to have a good ending. You really don't have any self-awareness. I invited you over, but you didn't come? The man in green said indifferently. He put down the teacup and said, You refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit. If you miss this opportunity, I'm afraid you'll have to crawl over yourself in the end. The green-clothed young man looked sideways. His posture was very arrogant. The corners of his eyes and the tips of his brows carried a bit of coldness. He said, You really don't want face when I give it to you. In the universe, the peace was broken, and many people were in heated discussion. At the same time, people also noticed that there were quite a few evolvers who were maintaining their silence for fear of bringing trouble upon themselves. A green-clothed manservant. This was Chu Feng's response. At the same time, he frowned. The other party actually pointed out the star domain he was in. His methods were heaven-defying. Was he actually this powerful? He didn't believe in heresy. After some thought, he no longer contacted the Wormhole Express Company. Instead, he flew directly into a planet and used the teleportation domains here to leave this starry sea. At this moment, at the edge of the Netherworld universe, a group of people were smiling. With Divine Master Huang around, they weren't afraid of the enemy escaping. They could find them no matter where they went. The group of people sipped their tea calmly. At this moment, they felt that it was necessary to subdue the many orthodoxies in this universe and mobilize them to help the Yang realm search for those two legendary artifacts. Gua, the old crow, who was standing on the ship's railing, spoke to the entire underworld universe. Oh, I'm also here to invite all evolvers of the Illuminator level and above in this universe to come here and have some tea. Anyone who dares to come? The voice of this ominous black bird was old and harsh at the same time. It reverberated on the black blood platform, shocking everyone. Some people's expressions changed. This old crow was calling out. He was really conceited to face the strongest group of people in the Een Realm universe by himself. The old crow smiled faintly and said, Come, have a cup of tea. Oh, no one dares to come? Of course, you can also interpret it as me asking the Illuminati to kneel here. This old crow was too blatant in the end. He was challenging the entire sea of stars and looking down on the underworld universe. He wasn't taking the evolvers at the mirror level in this world seriously. Many people from various races were furious, but in the end they sighed again. The evolvers at the Heaven Illuminator level had all disappeared and couldn't return safely. Old Heavenly Hound opened his mouth and said, "Oh, the evolvers of the Een Realm universe need to be a great realm higher to be qualified to fight with the cultivators of the Yang realm." Its tone was flat, but at the same time, it was looking down on all the evolvers of the underworld universe. This was practically setting up an arena. The few of them stood still and waited at the edge of the netherworld universe. This was tantamount to letting out word that anyone who wasn't convinced could challenge them. "This old man will sit here and drink tea. I welcome all the evolvers who have the courage to come and verify and discuss the Tao, hee." The old Heavenly Hound's laughter was filled with conceit and arrogance. Clang, clang, clang. As he spoke, the old Heavenly Hound lifted his paw and broken weapons flew out one after another. Some were broken spears, some were broken swords, some were shattered ancient cauldrons, and some were broken pieces of large bells. All of them were stained with blood as they landed around the large ship, bobbing up and down with an oppressive aura. The universe was greatly shaken. That was because some people recognized that these were the weapons of some powerhouses at the Heaven Illuminator level. They belonged to this universe and were all broken. One could imagine the outcome of their owners. After the old Heavenly Hound threw out these weapons, it didn't say anything else. However, it was equivalent to slapping the faces of the evolvers of various races and intimidating the entire starry sky. This was blatant contempt. "I have some here too," the old crow said. As he opened his mouth, he spat out some broken weapons. They were all stained with blood and belonged to the Illuminator level. He added, "I'm waiting here for that young man called Chu Feng to come knocking. I'm also waiting for the strongest among you. Does anyone dare to come?" At this moment, many people's emotions were fluctuating violently. The people of the Yang realm were too domineering. This was a provocation. After suppressing the entire Yang realm, they were still looking down on them. The hearts of many evolvers from the great races were dripping blood as they recognized the sect-guarding weapons of their race. The ancient ancestor was definitely dead, and he was even displayed like this. Damn it, a dog and a crow are suppressing our Yang realm universe. This is too sullen. If I were at the Illuminator level, I'd definitely go and slaughter them. Someone roared angrily. This was also what many people were thinking. However, no expert of this level had appeared in this world. For a moment, all the evolvers in the starry sky felt a sense of defeat and dispirited. Was the Yang realm so powerful that they couldn't be defeated? Just a few people could come and show off their might. Heh heh. The old Heavenly Hound's laughter rang out. It was truly somewhat ear-piercing. Many people were resentful and their hearts were burning with fury. The huge Yang realm was actually being looked down upon like this. There wasn't a single person who could fight. Sigh. A sigh rang out on an ordinary vital planet in a very remote part of the starry sky. This was an ordinary village. An old man was sharpening a hatchet at the entrance of the village. He looked at a lame old horse that was pulling the mill and said, "Old friend, can you still run?" The lame old horse spoke in human language and didn't answer. He asked in a very old voice, "In ancient times, you retired and returned to the fields. Now that you're out, can you still carry a knife?" "I should still be able to chop off a few beasts' heads, although I most likely won't have a good ending," the old man replied as he continued to sharpen his rusty hatchet. At this moment, at the edge of the Yang realm universe, Divine Master Huang was very calm. He took out a few beast skin scrolls and was studying them. He muttered to himself, "These are all bounties and wanted posters from the Yang realm. Since I've come to the Yang realm universe, let me take a closer look. Who knows, I might be able to gain something." Beside him, a few young people were shocked after seeing the records on the beast skin scrolls. Some were wanted posters issued by the immortal dynasties, while some were related to the celestial venerables. Back then, King Permetha escaped into the Yang realm. Although he was killed, it's suspected that he left behind descendants. It's worth exploring. I'll make some deductions in a while. If there really are descendants left behind, they won't be able to avoid my deduction technique," the old weasel muttered to himself and revealed a smile. This sky-high bounty was worth making a move. The old weasel continued to flip through the beast-skin scrolls and revealed a surprised expression. There's another piece of information here that isn't a bounty. It's just a rumor. The one sitting in the fallen emperor slope in the Yang realm once planted the mother metal in the bodies of a few geniuses, and some experimental subjects entered the Yang realm. He inhaled a breath of cold air. This involved the work of a certain great character. He decisively skipped over this article and didn't delve into it. Afterward, Divine Master Huang began to divine everything about King Permitha. He knew what he should touch and what he shouldn't. Interesting. King Permitha is indeed dead, but his bloodline is still in this universe. Let me see where it is. The old weasel deduced for a while and revealed a joyful expression. I know where it is. He turned back to look at old Tiango and Black Crow, asking for their assistance to help him take down this bounty. Don't worry. Although there aren't many people from the Yang realm, there are still a few of them. There are still some at the Illuminator level. Old Tiango was very kind to him and had a very humble attitude. He would grant all of his requests. He waved his large claws and 4 large ships slowly sailed over from the primal chaos. There were only 3 people sitting cross-legged on each ship. There weren't many of them. However, they were all at the Illuminator level. Among these people, some of them were bare-chested with bronze-colored skin. They were sitting cross-legged with a snow-white longsword on their knees. Some were breathing in and out with chaotic chi going in and out of their mouths and noses, while others were resting with their eyes closed. 3 people were sitting cross-legged on each of the 4 ships. They were all evolvers at the Illuminator level from the Yang realm. Very well, we'll set off immediately. Divine Master Huang spoke and informed them of the coordinate. However, at this moment, a blue vine flew over with a pop. It pierced through the void and pierced towards the old weasel's glabella. It was too sudden. Even the 2 experts, Old Tiango and Black Crow, weren't alerted in advance. Divine Master Huang was even more shocked. He could seek fortune and avoid calamity, but in the end, someone actually got close to him and coldly tried to kill him. He did everything he could to evade, and the talismans on his body burned to help him escape death. With a pop, the blue vine pierced through the death substitution talisman, but it still pierced through the old weasel's shoulder. His right forelimb rapidly cracked and exploded, causing blood to splatter everywhere. This almost tore his entire body apart. The old weasel simply couldn't believe it. He was seriously injured and almost met with a calamity, but he actually didn't predict it in advance. Which part of the chain went wrong? Old Tiango and Black Crow came to their senses and roared angrily. Their blood energy overflowed into the sky as they pounced forward to attack. They were startled, angry, and afraid at the same time. The 2 of them were in charge of protecting Divine Master Huang, but in the end, they almost watched helplessly as he was assassinated. If this Divine Master died, they would also be buried with him. In this area, the sky was filled with blue petals. One after another, spider lilies appeared and sprinkled down like a gorgeous and dreamy rain. It's you! The old weasel immediately knew who had come. They were still deducing not long ago, but in the end it had killed its way to the scene so quickly. That's right, your grandfather is here. The spider lilies avoided the old Tiango and Black Crow. There were its blue clones everywhere, interfering with everyone here and illuminating the sky with blue light. Its true body wrapped around a large ship with a boom. There were 3 heaven illuminators on this ship, who had just sailed out from the primal chaos. However, the blue spider lilies were still fearless. Its roots, stems, and leaves were all glowing, and divine chains of order were densely spread out, trapping the entire ship. Roar! The 3 trapped experts roared angrily, but their protective radiance was penetrated amidst popping sounds as divine chains ran through their bodies. You guys killed my father. I haven't even taken revenge for this, and now you're trying to kill me. Do you really think I'm easy to bully? Roared the spider lilies. The head of a heaven illuminator rolled down as it was sliced apart by its roots. His spirit was also destroyed. All of this happened in the time it took for a spark to fly off a flint. The spider lilies suddenly attacked and went completely crazy. Another heaven illuminator was wrapped up within, and his body rapidly shriveled up. He was pierced through by numerous roots and divine chains of order and was twisted into pieces in the blink of an eye. At the same time, on a certain remote planet in the universe, the old man who had just finished sharpening his hatchet put on his tattered armor, mounted his crippled old horse, and set out on his journey. Chapter 931. An old horse was crippled, but its movements were extremely fast. It pierced through the starry skies and rushed to the edge of the cosmos. Moreover, its state was rapidly changing. All of its dull and lusterless mixed hair fell off, revealing its sturdy body. Even its form had changed. This wasn't a horse, but rather a kuei. It was shaped like an ox and had no horns on its body. At this moment, it let out a roar and lightning surged. It tore through the dark cosmos and became incomparably dazzling. This was a vicious beast whose might shook the ancient times and was rarely seen in the world. Moreover, the ordinary kuei only had one leg, but this one had evolved 3. Even the 4th leg had grown out. The scene was extraordinary. Once it had 4 legs, it would become a divine beast. Moreover, it was a divine beast of the first generation that had successfully evolved on its own. At the same time, the old man carrying the hatchet on the kuei's back was also undergoing astonishing changes. His body became tall and sturdy as he became a large man. His appearance was rough and somewhat ugly, but it was difficult to conceal his soaring divine spirit. The rusty hatchet on his back erupted with splendor. All of the rust fell off and turned into a snow-white long blade. Me. Tuafo. The Buddhist race was paying attention to an ancient saint at the edge of the cosmos. He looked as if he had seen a ghost. This was that person from back then. He was actually still alive. Heaven Blade, he actually didn't die in meditation. He rode his kuei into the world again. An ancient saint from the Tao race was also astonished and his voice trembled slightly. In the era when ancient saints like them had just become famous, during the glorious ancient times, this Wu Xingquan, who was revered as Heaven Blade, had already illuminated the heavens for a long time. He was extremely dazzling and had left behind too much glory. At that time, Heaven Blade Wu Xingquan didn't have much lifespan left and was about to die in meditation. In the end, he rode the kuei that had accompanied him his entire life to find a burial ground. He hummed his funeral song alone and was quite detached from the world. Who would have thought that after so many years, he would actually appear again? He hadn't died and was still alive in this world, appearing once again with a blade on his back. Heaven Blade severs emotion. He was alone his entire life. His childhood sweetheart unexpectedly died under his own Heaven Blade, and he never married. Even one of the top 10 beauties in the starry skies fell in love with him, but she was tactfully rejected. His entire life was devoted to his blade. There were too many topics and legends about him back then. This person should have died and his lifespan had long run out, but he actually appeared again. Just as the crowd became excited, the man and the horse disappeared. Sky Blade Wu Xingquan was too terrifying. The shiny long blade in his hand suddenly slashed down, splitting the universe. This somewhat ugly but powerful man directly split the universe apart. His horse stepped into the void and soared into the sky, rushing to the edge of the universe. Outside the primal chaos, the battle was extremely intense. In just an instant, a large ship from the Yang realm cosmos had been covered by spider lilies. He had killed 2 people. This was an evolver of the Mirror Realm, the highest achievement in the Netherworld. But now, one of them had been decapitated, and the other had been pierced through by the divine chains of order, dying completely. Ah! The spider lily roared loudly. With a hong sound, its plant body covered the entire ship, causing it to completely disintegrate. The last illuminator on the ship was strangled by his roots and pierced through by his vines. He shriveled up rapidly. Everything happened too quickly, and no one could save him in time. The old heavenly hound rebuked angrily. Its barking shook the nearby primal chaos and caused countless black cracks to appear in the void. Its vitality was overflowing. At this moment, although it was old, the exuberant vitality it emitted was even more terrifying than many powerhouses in their prime. In the vicinity, a sea of blood surged from its body and flooded the edge of the netherworld cosmos. Its body became very terrifying as it opened its bloody mouth. It was only a few meters long, but it swallowed all the nearby planets into its mouth. The Dharma form swallowed planets. Not only did it bear its malevolent and snow-white fangs at the spider lilies, but it also brandished an incomparably terrifying and sharp claw that flickered with cold light and slapped forward. The void exploded. Not to mention the spider lilies in front of it, even some of the celestial bodies far behind it were shattered by this terrifying energy and disintegrated one after another. In the vicinity, the various incarnations of the spider lilies were broken inch by inch and turned into powder. Naturally, its true body had been discovered because the old heavenly hound had locked onto it. The spider lilies wanted to avoid its edge because it was deeply aware of how terrifying the old heavenly hound was. However, that large claw was too terrifying. It covered the firmament and had already enveloped it. It formed a small universe where spatial order interweaved and clanging sounds could be heard. Chi. At this moment, the void split open and a dazzling cold light appeared. A blade radiance seemed to have cut through the eternity of the universe and illuminated the mortal world. Accompanied by a flash of blood, the old heavenly hound let out a muffled groan and its body trembled. One of its large claws was chopped off by the heaven blade and blood splattered in all directions. This blade was too tyrannical and indestructible. It was as powerful as the old heavenly hound and was known as a demigod. It had accumulated countless years and its cultivation was terrifyingly high. It had once easily slaughtered a few Illuminati experts, but now its right forelimb was chopped off by a blade. This made it feel great hatred and panic at the same time. It felt incomparable pain and blood kept spurting out. Roar! It let out a loud roar that shook the entire cosmos. It opened its bloody mouth and wanted to swallow Heaven Blade Wu Xingquan. The heavenly hound swallowing the moon was a folklore. The true experts of this race could swallow the starry skies. Kacha! At this moment, the mighty kuei that Wu Xingquan was sitting on had snow-white fur and emitted glaring lightning. It had 3 legs that enhanced its might of thunder. With a boom, the kuei opened its mouth and spat out lightning that contained traces of dense immortal mist into its bloody mouth. The old heavenly hound let out a blood-curdling screech as the back of its neck was penetrated. The lightning that rushed into its mouth was too powerful and charred its bloody mouth black. Blood splattered everywhere and it was even penetrated. If it wasn't for the fact that an expert of this level could be revived with a drop of blood, it would definitely be in danger this time. However, it had also fallen into a passive position because of this. The snow-white blade in Heaven Blade Wu Xingquan's hand was too fast. It reproduced the unrivaled blade momentum that allowed him to traverse the universe unhindered in the past. A bloody wound appeared on the old heavenly hound's left shoulder blade. It was so deep that the bone could be seen. Chi. The blade radiance surged and a few terrifying wounds were left on the old heavenly hound's chest, causing blood to flow. You're courting death. I'm an evolver at the pinnacle of the Yang realm, and I'm known as a demigod. How dare a Yin spirit act violently against me? The old heavenly hound was furious. It had once said that the cultivators of this universe had to be one realm higher to be able to compete with the living beings of the Yang realm. In the end, there was someone who disregarded this rule and slashed at it with a blade. The old heavenly hound's aura changed, and its body became no longer the length of a normal person. It stood upright, and the grayish-black fur on its body emitted a faint golden luster. After that, its aura rose explosively and was drowned by the golden light. Kill! It clashed with the heaven blade with its bare hands, but of course, it didn't dare to touch the blade's edge. It continuously struck the side of the blade, causing sparks to fly everywhere. The sound was ear-piercing and extremely terrifying. There were densely packed order patterns between its pale golden claws and the heaven blade. They were all law runes that collided intensely, and even the starry sky was cracking. The two were engaged in a furious battle. It was a showdown at the pinnacle. The people of the Yang realm and the surroundings were stunned. The old heavenly hound actually encountered an opponent in the Yang realm universe? In their hearts, it should be able to crush and sweep away all enemies. As for the people from various races in the starry sky, they were even more stunned. The reappearance of Heaven Blade Wu Xingquan shocked all of them. They didn't expect him to be so powerful and block a great expert from the Yang realm. The red spider lily also appeared once again and killed a Yang realm illuminator expert. It simply caused the starry sky to boil. Croak! The black crow's eyes were scarlet red like gems and shot out scarlet clouds. It swooped down instantly and wanted to attack Heaven Blade Wu Xingquan together with the old heavenly hound. Crack! Tens of hundreds of thick lightning bolts were emitted from the one-legged bull's body, and all of them blasted toward the black crow. At the same time, the red spider lily was also moving. The sky was filled with sparkling petals, and blue vines densely covered the place. A few of them turned into blue divine spears and shot toward the crow in midair. Boom! There was an intense collision. The black feathers on the old heavenly hound's body spread out and emitted an intense black light. It destroyed the lightning and shook off the vines. The red spider lily grows in the Yang realm universe and limits your upper limit. How dare you make a move against me? The old heavenly hound's black light surged and spewed black flames at the red spider lily before rushing toward Heaven Blade Wu Xingquan again. Silly bird, your grandpa red spider lily is most suitable to grow in the Yang realm. Give me your bird life! The red spider lily shouted. The blue light around his body surged and the Yin fog surged, blocking all the black flames. Then, he pounced over with his real body. Red spider lily, your father is a fugitive, and you are the son of a prisoner. You have to be brought to justice too. Hand over your life. At this moment, the 9 Illuminator experts on the other 3 ships approached. One of them shouted. It was a middle-aged man holding a 3-pointed, double-edged sword as he pounced over. The red spider lily's heart trembled. This was the leader of the 9 Illuminators. He was extremely powerful and wasn't weaker than the old heavenly hound and the black crow. Moreover, he was in the prime of his life and was full of vigor. He was a human expert, and he charged over just like that and split the void of the universe with his blade. The red spider lily roared, and a faint blue light suddenly appeared around his body. It was a type of flame that blended with his body. It was very painful for an evolver from the plant race. However, the fusion was successful and the aura around his body surged. There's a planet adjacent to the Yin Sparrow race that has the 9 Nether Forbidden Land. It's one of the most terrifying regions in the universe. The red spider lily has successfully entered and extracted a portion of the 9 Nether Fire Seed. Someone from the Tao race gasped in admiration. Their race was too ancient and knew the secret of that forbidden land. The red spider lily's divine might surged as he fought with the leader of the Illuminators in a life-and-death struggle. Suddenly, a blue vine flew out and killed one of the young disciples from the 4 sects in the distance. He was pierced between the brows on the spot, and then his entire body exploded. You. What kind of hero are you to attack a junior? The people from the Yang realm berated. The red spider lily was unmoved and said, Damn you. My father was a hero, but he was killed by the people from the Yang realm. I'm killing the enemy normally, and you have the nerve to spout nonsense? Come, come, come. Your uncle Red Spider Lily loves to kill the bastards from the Yang realm, including old bastards like you. Rumble. The battle was intense. The one-legged ox roared and spat out lightning as it went to fight the old crow alone. Its roar was deafening. There were many wounds on its body that were so deep that bones could be seen. Although it was strong, it was suppressed by the Yin realm and hadn't entered the divine realm. It was at a disadvantage against the vicious bird from the Yang realm. On the other side, Sky Knife Wu Xingquan had separated from the one-legged ox and was fighting the old heavenly hound alone. Kill. The blade light was like snowflakes as it engulfed the sky and illuminated the edge of the universe. Wu Xingquan was too powerful and lived up to his name. The old heavenly hound was terrifying. Every time it waved its claws, golden runes bloomed densely. It was activating the laws to suppress and kill Sky Knife Wu Xingquan. Amidst the clanging sounds, the two fought to the death. Energy surged and blood pressure covered the entire universe. In the end, the bright blade in Sky Knife Wu Xingquan's hand flashed. With a puff, the old heavenly hound's neck was cut open. A pale golden dog head flew out and blood flowed. Sky Knife Wu Xingquan's blade had beheaded the demigod heavenly hound. The dog's body disintegrated and was minced up by the endless blade chi. It turned into a bloody mist, including the soul light. However, amidst the furious barks, the old heavenly hound reappeared and reformed its true form. It opened its bloody mouth and said with incomparable ferocity and malevolence, I have the death substitute talisman and blocked this sure kill attack. It's time for you to go on your way now. A death substitute talisman of this level could only be refined by an evolver at the peak of the divine realm. Obviously, the Yin realm didn't have it. The death substitute talisman can save you once, but can it save you a second or a third time? I'll chop off your dog head again. Wu Xingquan roared. This tall and sturdy man held his blade horizontally forward. His gaze was also as sharp and intimidating as the blade's edge. He was incomparably tyrannical, and his entire person was about to transform into an invincible blade. Kill! In an instant, he suddenly swung his blade backward. With a puff, he struck the black crow in the sky behind him, causing its feathers to wither and its blood to splatter. The one-legged ox had just encountered a calamity and was almost torn apart by the black crow. Wu Xingquan resolved the crisis with a single blade. Kill! Sky Blade Wu Xingquan swung his blade again and pounced toward the old heavenly hound. He wanted to kill him for the second time. F***ck your grandpa, it really hurts. I, the new king of Permetha, am furious. The red spider lily shouted. A small section of its roots had been cut off by the three-pointed, double-edged blade of the opposing leader. The blue flames covering its body rushed into the sky and surged, causing the primal chaos in the distance to surge. The red spider lily rushed to the side without a care for anything else. It enveloped a heavenly illuminator expert and completely wrapped him up. Then, it roared angrily and absorbed the person's energy. The leader chased after it from behind while the red spider lily kept changing its direction. During this process, the heavenly illuminator who was wrapped up was also struggling furiously. Countless law runes were blasted out, causing many of the red spider lily's leaves and smaller branches to break and fall off. But with a puff, this person was finally destroyed by the red spider lily and his life energy was sucked dry. This is the fourth kill from your king. I'm not losing out. My life source has been replenished. Again. It roared as its roots grew and charged forward. On the other side, Sky Blade Wu Xingquan's tall and sturdy body was also moving. The blade light surged forward like a waterfall or a vast ocean. It was bright and terrifying as he said, "I'll chop off your dog head again. The year of the dog is here. I'm a little worried that dogs are being abused during the new year. I'll burn incense and pray to the Black Emperor later. On New Year's Eve, I wish everyone a happy family and a perfect ending. I wish everyone good luck in the coming year. I wish everyone good luck." Chapter 932. In the boundless epoch, all the gods will turn to dust, only I, the Lord of Paramitha. The flower fought intensely and shouted at the same time, "I hope the fifth slayer is a dog." It interfered with the old heavenly hound who was fighting Wu Xingquan. From time to time, it would shoot out a few blue leaves that tore apart the universe and targeted the old heavenly hound. In truth, it wasn't easy for it. In the void, the blue leaves withered. Under the terrifying blade energy of the leader that could cut apart the universe, many of the flower's branches were cut off and blue liquid spilled everywhere. At the edge of the universe, the situation was extremely dangerous. The kuei roared and lightning poured down as it fought against the black crow. However, this ferocious bird from the Yang realm was too terrifying. Its black feathers spread out and black light erupted to block the lightning. Every time it slashed through the air, it would leave a terrifying wound on the kuei's body. Wu Xingquan was very strong, but the old heavenly hound was also very terrifying. The two of them were fighting each other to the climax. Roar! Old Tengu roared, and his faintly golden body, which was as tall as a human, stood upright and attacked like a human. His pair of large claws clashed against Skyblade, causing sparks to fly about. The resulting shockwave from the clash reduced the nearby asteroids to dust. Its whole body shone with golden light, like an evil god from the dark abyss. After blocking Heavenblade with its claw, it left a few horrifying wounds on Wu Xingquan's shoulder. Blood gushed out and it nearly cut Heavenblade Wu Xingquan's neck. Blood splattered everywhere. Chi chi chi. The blade energy rushed into the sky like a burning star. It condensed together and turned into eternal light that shot towards the old heavenly hound. Finally, a terrifying blade light slashed at the old heavenly hound, almost cutting off one of its front limbs. The void was filled with cracks. The two of them fought until their eyes turned red and fought with their lives on the line. However, the old heavenly hound had the death substitution talisman. This kind of trump card increased its chances of victory by too much, giving it confidence. The atmosphere here was so oppressive that it was suffocating. Woof! The heavenly hound's barks shook the sky and the entire starry sky darkened. The heavenly hound was using a terrifying divine ability, its bloody mouth swallowing everything. In an instant, the sky turned dark and one couldn't even see their fingers in front of them. The old heavenly hound used its strongest divine ability to swallow Wu Xingquan alive. "Old Dao!" the red spider lily shouted. The leader sneered and blocked his path with his three-pointed, double-edged blade. He attacked with all his might, not letting him rescue him. On the other side, the kuei ox let out a long roar. It had gone completely crazy. It had walked with Sky Knife Wu Xingquan to this day, and they had gone through life and death together. Its entire body was covered in lightning, and every inch of its skin was bathed in lightning. Its body carried the aura of chaos, and it wanted to save Sky Knife Wu Xingquan. Gua! The black crow cried out loudly, its ruby-like eyes releasing terrifying radiance. It continuously attacked, cutting off the kuei cow's path. Crack! Lightning interweaved. Under the crazy attacks of the kuei ox, the black crow was beaten until its black feathers withered. It danced in the void of the universe, bringing with it electric arcs. It was extremely glaring. Ha ha! The old heavenly dog's laughter was extremely loud, shaking up the void until it rumbled and cracked apart. It devoured Wu Xingquan, blood still at the corners of its lips. Some belonged to Wu Xingquan, and some belonged to itself. Wu! The kuei ox roared. Chi! Suddenly, a blazing blade light tore apart the darkness, cutting apart this part of the starry sky. It came from the old heavenly dog's body. Its smile froze, and the heavenly dog's body rapidly broke into pieces. In the end, with a bang, the old heavenly dog disintegrated, and Sky Knife Wu Xingquan slaughtered his way out. The snow-white long blade in his hand was as resplendent as the heavenly sun, illuminating the void of the universe. Sky Knife Wu Xingquan staggered, his body covered in blood. Without a doubt, being suppressed by that kind of divine technique and swallowed into the old heavenly dog's stomach world was a terrifying torture. If it was someone else, they might have been crushed into a bloody pulp on the spot. His body was covered in wounds, and some of them were so deep that bones could be seen. Chi, chi, chi. He continuously brandished his blade, not stopping for even a moment, killing towards the old heavenly dog's shattered body. He wanted to kill him one more time and destroy the death substitute talisman in his body. Roar. However, the death substitute talisman was too extraordinary. It came from the hands of a certain divine king of the supreme martial deity bloodline. In an instant, the old heavenly dog's broken body and blood reassembled. It was wrapped in divine light, and external forces couldn't penetrate it. Then, it recovered once again. Do you feel a sense of accomplishment after killing me again? I did it on purpose. It's better if I can swallow you, but if I can't, I'll make you lose half your life. Let's see how you're going to fight me next. The old heavenly dog revealed a sinister smile. His eyes were no longer filled with vicissitudes, but deep and terrifying. The situation was critical. Sky Knife Wu Xingquan was in a disadvantageous position. He had killed the old heavenly dog twice in a row, but the other party was resurrected full of vigor and recovered to his peak state. He was helpless. In this universe, he was already at the peak for reaching this step. After all, he hadn't become a god, and the old heavenly dog was also at this level. Moreover, its body that was nourished by yang qi was tough and powerful, and it was very difficult to kill it. Now, one was weakening while the other was growing, and Wu Xingquan was finding it increasingly strenuous. On the other side, the one-legged bull was also in a dangerous situation. Even though billions of thunderbolts erupted, it couldn't kill the old crow. It could only injure it a few times. However, its own injuries were even more serious. The red spider lily situation wasn't looking good either. Apart from dealing with the leader, it also had to guard against the surrounding mirror-level powerhouses. Those people had tried to kill it several times. At this moment, juices were splattering everywhere, and the blue leaves were dancing in the air. It was continuously withering, and its injuries weren't light. The situation was very serious, and the battle strength of the Yang realm made it feel despair. Kill! At this moment, Sky Knife Wu Xingquan roared furiously. Glaring runes erupted from his burly body, and his entire body turned into a blade. He fused with his own snow-white long blade, and the scene was terrifying. He was like a snow-white waterfall that was inscribed with complicated and profound runes. He traversed the void and almost cut the old heavenly dog in half. He left a terrifying wound and dog blood splattered everywhere. Sky Knife Wu Xingquan turned into a blade and soared into the sky. He charged towards the red spider lily and attacked the other mirror-level powerhouses. It could be considered as helping the red spider lily out of its predicament. One of them was directly penetrated by the sky knife and exploded. His body and soul were both destroyed. Chi. Another person tried to block it, but his weapon was broken by the sky knife. Moreover, that person was also cleaved into two. His soul light was also destroyed, and he died completely. Swoosh. The third person's body was also penetrated by the sky knife. At this moment, Sky Knife Wu Xingquan could no longer maintain the shape of the blade. He revealed his true form and panted heavily. His face was as pale as snow, and the hand holding the blade was trembling slightly. There was no doubt that this kind of consumption was very great. The mirror-level powerhouse behind him, who had his body penetrated, disintegrated in the end despite his anger and unwillingness. The blade aura left in his body disintegrated and destroyed all his soul light. Dog barks shook the sky. The old heavenly dog was extremely furious and chased over. At the same time, the leaders who were fighting with Black Crow and the Red Spider Lily were also furious. They closed in together and charged fiercely, wanting to take the opportunity to kill Sky Knife Wu Xingquan. The one-legged bull roared, and the Red Spider Lily went crazy and fought with them. This area was very terrifying. Murderous intent filled the sky, and even the primal chaos was trembling. The underworld universe was silent, and the atmosphere was extremely oppressive. Everyone knew that the future of Sky Knife Wu Xingquan and the Red Spider Lily wasn't good. After all, the three main opponents all had death substitute talismans, while they were constantly consuming their own origin and getting injured. They would become weaker and weaker. For a moment, everyone felt their hearts sink. They simply couldn't see any hope. As expected, Sky Knife Wu Xingquan's heart was almost dug out by a light golden claw. His chest was slashed open, and several of his sternum were broken. He was sent flying. His situation wasn't good. A battle at this level was a life and death struggle, and the consumption was too great. On the other side, the one-legged bull was torn apart by Black Crow once, and its blood splattered across the starry sky. If it wasn't for Sky Knife Wu Xingquan risking his life to rescue it, the one-legged bull's soul light would have been destroyed. Ah! The Red Spider Lily roared furiously. When it was entangled in a fierce battle with the leader, it was attacked by a few mirror-level evolvers. Its body suffered heavy injuries, and many of its roots were broken. The situation was critical. One man, one horse, and a Red Spider Lily were about to be killed. Who else can save them? In the starry sky, some people's hearts were in their throats. They were too worried, and they truly didn't want them to be defeated and die. Is the underworld really far inferior to the Yang world? Just a few people came over, and they want to eliminate the strongest combat power here. It really makes one's heart ache and despair. In the universe, some famous guests sighed with sorrow. They rushed into the sky and wanted to help, but in the end, they dispiritedly stopped and clenched their fists. People at their level simply didn't have the qualifications to appear there. They couldn't even be suppressed by a single claw of the old heavenly hound, and they would explode upon contact. Bang! At the edge of the universe, the Red Spider Lily disintegrated and turned into a blue rain of light. That was his blood. However, he didn't die. He was reborn from a drop of blood, and he rapidly condensed his true body. However, his aura was clearly weakened, and he couldn't be compared to before. Little Prince Permitha, you still can't do it. Hee, doesn't your underworld have evolvers that are outstanding enough to make people revere them? Kill as many as you come. Is there anyone else who wants to come? The leader shouted with a laugh. Hee, come on. Who else dares to come? If anyone dares to appear, I'll kill them all. The old heavenly hound also laughed heartily. Its scarlet mouth was like a sacrificial bowl, and its snow-white fangs were exposed. Its eyes were very gloomy and cold, making it appear very sinister. Caw, if you dare to come, then kill them all. The Black Crow also said coldly. Its scarlet eyes flickered with cold light. They relied on the death substitution talisman and were full of confidence. Meanwhile, Wu Xingquan, Kuei Niu, and the Red Spider Lily were becoming increasingly weak, and could be killed at any time. Damn it, who can kill them? In the starry skies, many people were unconvinced. In particular, some hot-blooded youths were shouting loudly. In the universe, in a certain part of the starry skies, on an unknown vital planet. Within a mountain range, there were a few families of hunters. On a large bluestone, an old man was sitting cross-legged and constantly inhaling. He was very thin and small, and his body was also very shriveled. However, he was constantly swallowing the mysterious light beams that condensed from the void. "Grandpa, what's wrong with you?" Beside him, a pretty little boy asked. "Grandpa is old and doesn't have much strength left. I'm doing my best to absorb some of the universe's essence. I hope there's still enough time for me to fight the bad guys," the old man said. At this time, there were even more light beams surging into his body. The people nearby didn't feel anything, but if one stood in outer space, they would definitely be shocked. That was because they discovered that the energy was rapidly decreasing and gathering towards a certain mountain range on this planet. The rich energy turned into fine light beams one after another. "Grandpa, you're so strange today. Why are you different from before?" The pretty little boy was no more than 3 or 4 years old. He asked with puzzlement and suspicion. "Grandpa is old and will leave soon. In the future, I probably won't be able to return. You two siblings have to listen to your parents from now on." The old man swallowed the light beams while rubbing the boy's head. He was full of doting love. "Grandpa, what are you saying? Your body is still strong and healthy. You can still live for several hundred years." A white-clothed young lady walked over. Her large eyes were pure and revealed a worried expression. She sensed something and squatted down to support the old man's arm. The old man also rubbed her head dotingly and said, "A person's life is just a reincarnation. There's no difference between 70 years old and 100 years old, or 10,000 years old. What should be experienced has been experienced, and what should be experienced has been experienced. The joys and sorrows of life, longing and depression, hope and despair, they've all been tasted. There's nothing I can't let go of anymore. I've reached the end and should calmly leave. You're all good children. Live a bit happier in the future." Chi. His shriveled body emitted a faint light and gradually became brighter as if it had been ignited. "Good children, you all have to live on well. I hope you can grow up worry-free." Suddenly, the old man disappeared. After saying those words, he turned into a beam of light that rushed into the sky. He tore through the universe and rushed towards the edge of the universe. At this time, a hunter couple returned. They threw away the prey in their hands and rushed over. Their strength was actually quite strong, but they were far from being able to compare to the old man. They were orphans taken in by the old man since they were young and grew up under his guidance. However, they had never seen the old man take action. This was the last time they saw him, but it was only a final farewell. "Father, Mother, where did Grandpa go?" the little boy asked innocently. "Grandpa left." The hunter couple's eyes were filled with tears as they told the two children. They knew that they probably wouldn't see the old man return in this lifetime. They had a premonition that this was an eternal farewell. In another part of the universe, in a silent starry sky, on a desolate planet, a middle-aged man was coughing. His face was pale as he said, "I'm a tuberculosis ghost, but I'm also going to shine? My combat strength isn't enough, so I can only splash the starry sky with my blood. I hope that my death can pull down someone at the same level. I'm going." Chi. He turned into a beam of light and disappeared, rushing towards the edge of the universe. At this moment, a few more people went on their way. The last mirror-level powerhouses of the underworld universe came out together. Even though they knew that they were going to die, they still charged towards the edge of the universe. On the first day of the new year, I wish everyone good luck and all kinds of happiness to entangle you. Happy New Year! Chapter 933. It was a blood-stained battlefield at the edge of the universe. There was the blood of Sky Blade Wu Xingquan, the old Tiango, and the juice of the blue spider lilies. Moo! The Kuei looked up and let out an oppressive cry. Its entire body was cracked and its life was about to come to an end. It was full of cracks and wounds, especially its spine, which had been torn apart by the black crow. The Kuei was ready to self-destruct at any time to drag the enemy along with it. This black bird from the Yang realm was too terrifying. Its wings were like blades, and its beak was spitting out thunder and fire. It was too powerful and suppressed the Kuei until it fought to the death, but it still couldn't defeat it. Of course, some wounds appeared on the black crow under the Kuei's desperate attack, and its feathers fell off. At this moment, Sky Blade Wu Xingquan and the Spider Lilies were fighting with the old Tianguo and the leader. In addition, there were also illuminators attacking them, causing the people of the Netherworld to fall into a desperate situation. The main thing was that they had exhausted all their strength after fighting a bloody battle to this point. The so-called endless supply of energy and the inexhaustible supply of soul light also had its limit. How could they not exhaust their origin when facing such a formidable enemy, a true demigod? The other party had the death substitute talisman, but they had nothing. Both the Sky Blade and the Spider Lilies were fighting with their lives on the line. They burned with raging soul light that illuminated the sky. You want to die together? Come on, I have the death substitute talisman and can still be resurrected. You guys can fight with your lives on the line. I'll send you on your way. The old Tianguo hooted with a sinister expression. However, Sky Blade Wu Xingquan and the Spider Lilies were moved. They knew that the old Tianguo was a little guilty and timid. The death substitute talisman was most likely going to be completely used up. Croak! The black crow let out a long cry and tore apart a large piece of the Kuei's flesh, turning half of its body into a bloody mist. It spread its wings and attacked from the sky in order to surround the Sky Blade and the Spider Lilies with the old Tianguo. It wanted to seize the time to eliminate the two main forces. The Netherworld is really weak. Is there no one else? It sneered. Damned crow! A loud shout was heard like a clap of thunder, shaking one's divine soul and making it unstable as if it was about to explode. A sudden spiritual fluctuation came. It was a thin and withered old man. It was the adoptive father of the hunter and the grandfather of the siblings. After absorbing enough energy from the universe, he charged over. Boom! At the same time he shouted, he had already arrived above the black crow's head and had already made his move. He didn't look tall and his body was skinny, but that skinny body hid an astonishing amount of energy. When his palms landed on the black crow's body, it directly exploded. He was like a hunter walking in the dark, steady, accurate, and incomparably violent. He succeeded just like that. Without a doubt, if it wasn't for the life substitution talisman, this vicious bird from the Yang realm would have most likely died, and it wouldn't even be able to regenerate from a drop of blood. It would have been directly killed. A mist of blood exploded and the black crow disappeared. The thin and small old man's killing intent surged into the heavens as he moved swiftly like a bolt of lightning. Moreover, at the instant he made a move against Black Crow, a pair of shiny sledgehammers had already been tossed out in advance. They were boundlessly terrifying and coiled with divine radiance. Because his targets were still the old Heavenly Hound and the leader. Boom! Just like that, the old Heavenly Hound's waist was smashed apart. Sky Blade Wu Xingquan was incomparably sharp, and he seized the opportunity to sweep his blade across. The old Heavenly Hound's head was split open, and he died once more. On the other side, the void exploded. The other sledgehammer in that thin and small old man's hand also hit its target, and the leader who was fighting the red spider lily was hit. With a puff, his bones were broken and his tendons snapped. Someone as powerful as this head actually didn't evade because the power of laws of the other party was too terrifying. It locked down this part of the starry sky, and the sledgehammer was the source of the laws as it imprisoned him. Chi. The red spider lily made its move and pierced the space between the leader's brows. It made him fall on his back, and his corporeal body and soul light disintegrated. Unfortunately, this person also had the life substitution talisman. As expected, just like the old Heavenly Hound and Black Crow, when one reached the level of a half-deity, their identity and status weren't the same anymore. They had life-saving methods. In the blink of an eye, the three great half-deity experts of the Yang realm, were annihilated once with the arrival of the thin and small old man, shocking everyone here. Lord of Thunder! Sky Blade Wu Xingquan looked at this thin and small old man and was very astonished. He was very surprised that this old man who rose to power in an era that was even more ancient than him was actually still alive. This should be considered the oldest generation of people who were still alive in the Yin realm cosmos. It's me. I'm old and my body can't take it anymore. I can only barely make a move after gathering energy until now. The Lord of Thunder transmitted spiritual waves. In the cosmos, the Tao race, the Buddhist race, and the others were very astonished. This old man was truly a supreme expert from an extremely ancient era. Calculating the time, he should have passed away in meditation long ago. They didn't expect him to actually appear again. At the crucial moment, the Lord of Thunder stood out, and he was still as powerful as before. The Lord of Thunderback then smashed the experts of various paths in the starry sky into bowing their heads with a pair of sledgehammers. He was known to be unrivaled, and he moved unhindered throughout his life, leaving behind an endless legend. This person showed disdain for all races and was truly glorious throughout the ages. In the starry sky, the legendary figures of each race were really quite shaken. No one had expected to see this person again, and he actually appeared in the world alive. If Sky Blade hadn't shouted out his name, we wouldn't have known his identity even if he appeared. The era is too ancient. This is a peerless, fierce person of a generation. In the starry sky, many people were stirred up and incomparably excited. Kill. At this moment, the few people at the edge of the cosmos didn't stop and continued to attack those few mirror-level experts. Immediately, 4 people lost their lives. Even the one-legged ox risked its life to kill one person. Moreover, they pounced on the old weasel together because they knew that he was the core figure. You guys come quickly. Don't wait anymore. The old weasel screamed. Deductions and divination were his areas of expertise, but fighting wasn't his strong suit. In the primal chaos, a huge ship sailed over faintly. It was extremely oppressive. There were still people from the Yang realm who hadn't shown themselves, and now they revealed their terrifying figures. This made people despair. At the same time, the old heavenly hound, the Black Crow, and that leader came back to life. They reassembled their corporeal bodies and soul light and stood in front of Divine Master Huang to protect him. Did you really think we came here rashly? How could we possibly descend without the strength to kill all the top experts in your cosmos? The old heavenly hound sneered, and at the same time, his heart was trembling. He had actually been killed several times in succession, and the life substitution talisman could only be used once. He felt horrified. If it wasn't for the divine talisman, he would have actually died in the underworld cosmos this time. This was too different from what he had expected earlier. Wu, in the primal chaos, the huge warship let out a bugle horn. It was vigorous, oppressive, and intimidating. A few figures stood on it, and all of them were at the Illuminator level. There were 4 demigods on it. Even the god of Thunder's heart was heavy. He could kill the Black Crow and the others in an instant, just now because he grasped the timing very well, and it was a sneak attack. In fact, his true combat power was similar to that of Sky Knife Wu Xingquan. Now that a few demigods had arrived, how were they supposed to fight? This was a situation that made people despair. At the same time, the various races in the underworld cosmos also felt a sense of helplessness. After witnessing such a battle and seeing that there were still people descending from the Yang realm, their hearts went completely cold. The entire starry sky was deathly silent. Previously, when they saw the god of thunder appear, they were still incomparably excited. But now, it seemed that they really couldn't be compared to the Yang realm. Their foundation was too far apart. There were only a few people in the underworld who could fight, but a random group of people from the Yang realm could annihilate the strongest evolvers in this cosmos. In the primal chaos mist, the huge ship gradually became clearer. Apart from the 4 demigods, there were also more than 20 Illuminator experts. Every one of them was very strong, and this was rather terrifying. They hadn't even left the primal chaos region, and they were already oppressing people to the point of suffocation. Kill! At this moment, the god of thunder, Sky Knife Wu Xingquan, and the red spider lily didn't stop and charged forward. At the same time, the one-legged bull also roared, and its whole body glowed. It pounced toward the black crow and recognized this opponent. Little Kuei! Sky Knife Wu Xingquan's voice was hoarse as he shouted loudly. The corners of this burly man's eyes were cracked, and there were traces of blood flowing out. His hair was disheveled. That was because he saw that the one-legged bull was about to self-destruct. In the distance, the huge ship sailed over at a steady pace. It wasn't in a hurry to make a move because the old heavenly hound and the others could still handle it. Wu Xingquan fought with all his might. Even though his left rib was scratched by the old heavenly hound, he still charged over to save his old comrade, the one-legged bull. Wu, I'll make a move first. We're already this old, and we don't fear life and death. It's no big deal. The one-legged bull roared. Then, it began to burn and emit a glaring brilliance. Its body cracked, and its soul light boiled as it was about to explode. It unfolded a world of thunder, and an endless source of lightning appeared. It locked the black crow in place, and wanted to drag it along with it. Caw! The black crow struggled with all its might and rushed into the sky. Black light erupted and covered the world. A terrifying aura pervaded the air as it sneered. You want to drag me along? You can't even lock onto me. Go to hell. At this moment, its movements were too shocking. It was as though the power of time was pervading the air as it shuttled through a strange tunnel. It avoided the world of thunder in an attempt to escape this fatal situation. Boundless Thunder Realm. The one-legged bull roared, and its roar shook the sky. Its entire body emitted blazing light as it disintegrated. The world formed by interweaving lightning extended endlessly, dragging the black crow back. Moreover, it covered the old heavenly hound, the leader, and the other enemies at the reflector level. Help me block it! The old heavenly hound was the most horrified. He could only use the death substitution talisman once, and he didn't want to use it this time. He struggled with all his might. The leader was still considered kind. He held the 3-pointed, double-edged sword in his hand and pounced into the depths of the thunder. He helped the old heavenly hound block the fatal lightning and fought back with all his might. Boom! An intense explosion occurred. The black crow cried out miserably as it disintegrated into pieces. On the other side, the leader also exploded and turned into a bloody mist. In addition, 2 other experts at the reflector level were completely annihilated and died miserably. Ah! The old heavenly hound roared angrily and reformed in the distance. Heaven Sword Wu Xingquan's eyes were scarlet red. He pounced over and added another slash to the old heavenly hound, causing it to die once again on the spot. Ah! Similarly, the leader had just reappeared when he was killed once. Bang! The red spider lily attacked frantically and intercepted the old heavenly hound that was drenched in blood from the explosion. The red spider lily pierced through the space between its brows and consumed its death substitution talisman. The old heavenly hound was horrified. After it reformed its physical body once again, it fled with all its might towards the primal chaos. A large hammer flew over and smashed half of its body, causing it to scream miserably. It didn't dare to fight anymore and could only flee for its life. At the same time, the large ship sailed out of the primal chaos. 2 experts flew out and blocked everyone's path, protecting Divine Master Huang and the others. What are you panicking for, old heavenly hound? You're a little timid, one of them said. Kuei Nyo. In the distance, Heaven Sword Wu Xingquan's eyes were scarlet red. His long hair was disheveled as he roared at the sky. The companion that had accompanied him for most of his life had died. This companion had followed him since he was only a cub and was raised by him personally. From a charmingly naive person to an adult, he was now close to a divine beast. He conquered the world and went through life and death with him. They were closer than family. In the end, they were parted in death, just like that. Kill, Heaven's sword Wu Xingquan's blood was boiling with anger. At the same time, the Thunder God and the Red Spider Lily were also fighting. All of you must die. The two demigods who walked out from the large ship said coldly. They replaced the old Heavenly Hound mainly because the old Heavenly Hound's death substitution talisman had been consumed and he didn't dare to fight anymore. At this moment, Chu Feng arrived in the distant dark void. He wanted to shout that he had a green calabash and a strange substance that could kill people from the Yang realm. He knew that he couldn't get close to such a person by himself and wouldn't have the chance to blast out the green calabash. However, although the people of the underworld universe had seen him use this item to kill saint experts, they didn't recognize this strange substance at all. They didn't think it could kill Illuminati experts. Even the Thunder God, Heaven Sword Wu Xingquan, and the Red Spider Lily that grew up in the underworld universe didn't know about it. Moreover, so what if they knew? The demigod experts were scattered, and it would be difficult to kill all of them. However, Chu Feng risked his life to come here, especially when he saw the large ship that just sailed over. Even if 2 demigods walked out from it, there were still 2 demigods and more than 20 Illuminati experts. If he were to blast the green calabash, it would be worth it even if he died immediately. A sigh sounded beside Chu Feng's ear. Someone pressed on his shoulder and said, "Child, this isn't a place for you to stay. Go back." This person's face was very pale like a sickly person. Chu Feng was shocked. An Illuminati expert? He was indeed terrifying. He suddenly appeared beside him, and he couldn't detect him in advance. He sighed to himself. As expected, he couldn't participate in a battle of this level, even if he had the green calabash and the strange substance. "Senior, you are. Little Yellow is a good seedling. I hope you and it can live well," said the pale man. Chu Feng was shocked. He immediately realized that this might be the person Yellow Cattle had gone to find during the battle at the Great Abyss. He wanted to help, and he was also the person who had taught Yellow Cattle the breathing technique. Back then, this person had sent Yellow Cattle, who wasn't even 3 years old, to Earth. This person was most likely related to ancient Earth. This man's body was so weak that he didn't even have the strength to speak. Moreover, there was blood at the corner of his mouth. After wiping it away, he said, "I've made too many mistakes in my life. I've unintentionally committed a great sin. My disciple is a sinner throughout the ages, and naturally, I can't escape the blame. Today, let me use my own blood to wash away my sins." "You are?" Chu Feng was shocked. "Wei Shilin is my disciple." This person's voice was deep. He was Wei Shilin's master from the Shilin army, and he was from the same generation as Yao Yao's grandfather. Back then, he had entered the primal chaos universe early on as a saint. In the end, he became a heaven illuminator there, but he was injured and returned with an incurable disease. By the time he returned, it was almost ancient times and Earth had long since been destroyed. He was utterly disheartened after finding out that his disciple Wei Shilin was one of the executioners. He wanted nothing more than to kill the enemy and end his own life. But when he went to find Wei Shilin, he was delayed by this disciple. The corpse race and deity race's ancient ancestors attacked him and almost died. "I've been a failure in my life. I've taught a bastard. I can only wash away my hatred with my own blood." "Senior, this isn't your fault." Chu Feng was shocked. This was actually Wei Shilin's master. He was also from Earth and had become a heaven illuminator in the primal chaos universe. "Go back." The pale man tore open space and tossed Chu Feng inside. Live. You and Little Yellow have to work hard to survive. There's hope with you two here. He sternly warned Chu Feng not to turn back. Chu Feng's eyes were sore. He knew he couldn't change anything, and neither was he powerless to interfere with everything here. He could only pass over the azure calabash solemnly and use his soul light to transmit rapidly, telling him everything about this calabash. Very well. The pale man received the calabash and grasped it firmly. He turned around resolutely and said, I hope I can drag many people along with me. I really want to destroy them all. Chapter 934. The pale-faced man, Zhang Kong, should have been very handsome when he was young. Now, his temples were white and he looked sickly, but he could still be considered a handsome old man. Now, his decadent temperament was swept away, and there was a raging flame burning in the depths of his eyes. This was the first time he had such high fighting spirit since he learned that Earth had been massacred and destroyed in recent times. That extinguished battle intent and the ancient battle blood boiled again. At the same time, Zhang Kong also had a monstrous anger. He suppressed it and hid it in the depths of his heart as he approached the big ship. He approached the battlefield and merged into the void, waiting for the opportunity to launch the ultimate attack. In the battlefield, the battle became more and more desperate, causing everyone in the Een Realm universe to fall silent. No one could help. Sky Blade, Thunder God, and Red Spider Lily were covered in blood. They were like candles in the wind, and their lives could be extinguished at any time. Old Heavenly Hound retreated and entered the big ship. However, two demigods with surging blood energy had arrived. These two men who looked like they were middle-aged were waiting leisurely. They were both in their most powerful state. They were too brave and fierce. In addition to Black Crow and the leader from before, there were a total of 4 evolvers at the peak of the Een Realm universe. They had the absolute advantage when they attacked the 3 from the Een Realm universe. Even the Thunder God's body was torn apart once. It was only under the protection of Wu Xingquan and Red Spider Lily that he was able to condense his blood and reconstruct his physical body. There were no divine kings in the Een Realm universe, and no one could refine a death substitute talisman at the level of a divine king. Thunder God, Sky Blade, and the others could only rely on themselves to recover. They paid a huge price and became increasingly weaker. It would be too sullen if they died like this. The 3 of them looked at each other. They had to kill a demigod no matter what. Otherwise, they wouldn't be satisfied. Then, they fought with their lives on the line and attacked Old Crow fiercely. Even if they were attacked, covered in blood, and their bones were exposed, they wouldn't retreat even if their lives were in danger. Caw, Old Crow cried angrily. All of a sudden, the attacks of the 3 experts from the Een Realm universe poured down on him. He was shocked, furious, and terrified at the same time. He was finally killed again. A crack appeared on the death substitute talisman in his body, and he used up another chance of resurrection. But in this fierce attack, the Thunder God was heavily injured. It was almost cleaved into 2 by the 3-pointed, double-edged saber. One of its shoulders fell off, and blood splattered across the starry sky. He appeared to be in a bit of a decline because he was the oldest. His lifespan was close to its end, so the amount of energy he could use wasn't that much. The great battle this time had been brewing for a long time. At the same time, the spider lily was also in a miserable state. Its blue leaves danced in the air, and its vines were cut off by many roots. Sky Blade Wu Xingquan, on the other hand, was also gravely injured. His chest had been pierced by a spear, which had nearly torn him to pieces. Kill! There was only this single word in the world, and it resounded with a deafening clang. The 3 of them disregarded everything and pounced over once more, vowing to kill the Old Crow. Stop them! I can't hold on any longer. The Old Crow screeched and rushed towards the large ship in the back. It was a bit terrified to escape the battlefield. Even though it had the death substitute talisman, it was still afraid. It had been killed one after another, and it was terrified. The people of the Yang realm are only SOSO. The god of thunder laughed heartily. Blood flowed continuously from its small body, and the corner of its mouth was scarlet red. He was mocking the old crow. However, the vicious bird didn't even look back. It fled towards the large ship and shouted, "Did I not kill enough mirror-level experts in the chaotic universe? Many of them were creatures from your universe." It refuted in this way with annoyance. This was indeed the cruel truth. They had gone on a killing spree in the chaotic universe and beheaded many mirror-level evolvers in the Yang realm. It didn't seem difficult at all. It was precisely because of this that they increasingly felt that a few demigods were enough to look down on the Yang realm and sweep through all the orthodoxies without much effort. How could they have expected that they would run into a tough bone? The most powerful people in the Yang realm had come into being and killed them until they were terrified. If it wasn't for the death substitute talisman, they would have died a long time ago. From the old crow's point of view, this was truly humiliating. After all, they came from the Yang realm and usually cultivated top-notch breathing technique. Furthermore, they were nourished by Yang Qi day and night, so they should have been high and mighty and could easily kill experts of the same level. Now that they had suffered such a setback and were being chased by a few people from the Yang realm, what face would they have left if news of this got back to the Yang realm? At the same time, the last two demigods on the large ship moved out and replaced the Black Crow as they charged forward. This was rather terrifying and made people feel despair. The old Heavenly Hound and the old Crow fled to the large ship, but a total of 4 demigods replaced them. Including the leader, there were a total of 5 experts. "I really hate this!" Sky Blade Wu Xingquan roared furiously. His companion for most of his life, the one-legged ox, had self-destructed and died, yet he couldn't avenge it. Now, he was going to die a tragic death here. The people of the Yang realm also want to stir up trouble. After the celestial venerables of the Yang realm made their decision and wanted us to descend, many of your fates were already sealed. A demigod smiled indifferently. "Since that's the case, let's perish together. Even if we die, we must die splendidly. We won't allow your dirty hands to touch our corpses. Let's self-destruct and drag them along with us to die a few times." The Spider Lily and the Thunder God Lord roared. The 3 powerhouses, the strongest experts at the peak of the Illuminator realm in the Een realm, moved. Their entire bodies glowed, and their blood energy tore through the sky. Their entire bodies were burning with essence energy, and they were about to self-destruct. The demigods on the other side were horrified. They retreated rapidly and dodged immediately. Even if they had death substitution talismans, they were not willing to be killed like this. Moreover, the destructive storm formed by the self-detonation of these 3 great experts would be extremely terrifying. It was possible that it could kill them several times in a row. Boom! Monstrous blood chi erupted, and world-shaking energy fluctuations surged out. At this moment, it was unknown how many people from all over the underworld cosmos cried out. Their eyes were sore, and they felt a sharp pain in their hearts as they watched these 3 people die. Now, Skyblade gave a low growl and his whole body turned thin. His body had transformed into an incomparably sharp blade, and the blade energy it exuded shocked the world. Taking advantage of the few demigods escaping, he charged directly toward the ship at the edge of primal chaos. He was too fast. At the same time, the God of Thunder also roared angrily. His small body was dripping with blood. Dazzling light shone as he carried his 2 great hammers and rushed towards the ship. Other than that, there was also the red spider lily who had transformed into a human form. It was a man in tattered blue clothes. His body was full of wounds as he descended toward the huge warship. Old Tiango, Black Crow, Divine Master Huang, and a few young people were on board. At this moment, these people were horrified. Not good, kill them. A few demigods were shocked and angry as they rushed toward the ship in a hurry. They knew that they had been tricked. The three great experts of the underworld had only pretended to self-detonate to scare them away. Their target was the people on the ship. Protect Divine Master Huang and surround those three in spirit. Kill them without mercy. A demigod used his spirit to transmit his voice, forming a terrifying storm that shook the area. He was truly furious. If Divine Master Huang died tragically, they wouldn't be able to survive either. If these people couldn't protect Old Weasel, it would be a serious dereliction of duty. There were still more than 20 Mirror Realm experts on the ship. Although they weren't peak existences and couldn't be considered demigods, they were still very strong. In comparison, Old Tiango and Black Crow stood at the back and were a little hesitant. In the end, they only stood in front of Divine Master Huang and didn't make a move personally. That was because there was a shadow in their hearts. They were afraid that they would really be killed by those three obviously crazy people. Haha, your Grandpa Thunder God hasn't started a massacre yet. Although I've killed demigods before, he's alive again. In that case, I'll use you guys to make up the numbers and reap as much as I can before I die. The Thunder God was so angry that he laughed. The pair of huge hammers in his hands was too terrifying. Boom. It was just a single strike, but the huge hammers smashed the weapon and person of a Mirror Realm expert who was blocking him into a bloody mist. They exploded on the hull of the ship, and it was rather tyrannical. Kill! Two people at the side roared furiously. Spears and battle swords pierced forward together. The light was so glaring that people couldn't open their eyes. The murderous intent was boundless. Die! The Thunder God bellowed furiously. The pair of huge hammers in his hands smashed out, shattering the spearheads and shattering the battle swords into over a dozen pieces. He charged over and shattered the two people alive. At the same time, he swung his hammers again to kill Soul Light. This was really too brave and fierce. Back then, when he was moving unhindered in the Een Realm cosmos, he was an invincible person in an era. He had lived until now, and his cultivation was unfathomable as he reproduced his divine might from back then. Arrows flew over from the side. Someone shot an iron arrow and pierced through his body. At the same time, there was another person who threw a spear and pierced through the old man's body. His chest was dripping with fresh blood. It wasn't that the Thunder God hadn't been injured before. His body had even been torn into two pieces, but he had reconstructed it again. But now it was a little different. After all, his blood and chi were dried up and he had suffered such heavy injuries. His body shook violently and blood without luster splashed out. Kill! The Thunder God bellowed furiously. A murderous sound came from his small and thin body, and it even caused the void to explode. He suddenly threw out his huge hammers, and both of them flew out. The person who fired the bow and arrow was smashed into meat paste, and the head of the other person who threw the spear was also split into pieces. The old man's huge hammers contained laws that locked onto them and destroyed their corporeal bodies immediately. Rumble! The Thunder God bellowed angrily. He clenched his fists tightly and turned them into hammers. He charged forward and annihilated the two people's soul lights. There were many wounds on his body, and some swords were stabbed into him. However, he was incomparably brave and fierce as he charged forward. At the forefront, Divine Master Huang was terrified out of his wits. Even the old Heavenly Hound and the Black Crow were scared. And at this moment, Heaven Blade Wu Xingquan was also going crazy. He transformed into a shiny long blade and slashed over. He reaped several lives in succession with a pff sound, and they were all at the Illuminator level. In the end, he also staggered and revealed his original form. He didn't have the strength to maintain his blade form. That's enough. I don't need to pay any more. I'm killing to my heart's content, ha. The red spider lily laughed heartily. He was covered in blood as he killed with his bare hand. He had killed a few people here in succession, and his whole body was covered in the blood of illuminators. The thunder god also laughed heartily. What experts from the Yang realm! What do you mean we need to be one realm higher than you in order to fight? It's all bullsh**. Today, I'll kill all of you until your heads roll and your asses pee. How delightful! At this moment, the thunder god's entire body was glowing. His hands turned into fists, and every time he smashed down, he would pierce through the void. The laws were densely covered, and lightning interweaved as he killed powerhouses one after another. Of course, his body was also full of weapons. It was terrifying and dripping with blood. It was hard to imagine how such a thin and small body could contain such tyrannical and powerful energy. All three of you spirits must die tragically. I'll torture you for 100 years before I crush you. A few demigods at the back charged forward and roared angrily. They were unable to restrain their anger, and the veins on their foreheads were throbbing violently. It was just a moment of carelessness, but they actually caused their side to suffer such heavy losses. So many illuminators were killed. This was unforgivable. They went crazy and attacked with all their might. In the time it took for a spark to fly off a flint, all the experts were squeezed onto the big ship and gathered in one place. Even though this big ship was incomparably sturdy, and was inscribed with a large number of Yang realm symbols, cracks were now appearing on it and it was about to disintegrate. Without the protection of the celestial venerable's decree, it was about to be destroyed. That's enough. The three of you can retreat. At this moment, a voice rang out in the depths of the hearts of the Thunder God, Red Spider Lily, and Heaven Blade Wu Xingquan at the same time, telling them that the time had come and they could retreat. The master of the Shilin army's commander, Wei Shilin, was the pale, handsome old man from ancient Earth, Zhang Kong. At this moment, blood was dripping from the corner of his mouth as he did his best to urge his energy into the green calabash. Earlier on, he had already communicated with the three of them in secret and discussed how to do this. They would draw everyone to one place. Now, the three of them had succeeded. I've been a failure in my life and am full of regrets. I painstakingly taught a disciple, but I became a sinner for all eternity and a cold-blooded executioner. I don't have the face to see my ancestors again, and I don't have the face to see my old friends who died in the underworld. Today, I've come to atone for my sins. I'll use my blood and my life to make up for my regrets. His eyes reflected everything from the past, his youth. At that time, he was still young, handsome, and full of vigor. He followed a group of friends to roam the sea of stars, drank to his heart's content, and chased after the woman he liked. But look at the present. What was left of him? Many of his old friends and acquaintances had died under the butcher's knife of his own disciple. When he saw the Thunder God, Heaven Blade, and Red Spider Lily rushing into the sky, Zhang Kong made his move and suddenly smashed the green calabash. This innate calabash that had yet to mature was full of cracks and was on the verge of shattering. After he poured a huge amount of energy into it, he suddenly smashed it into the big ship and disintegrated with a boom, causing a huge explosion. This scene shook the universe. Dazzling light directly rushed into the sky and tore apart the darkness. Chapter 935. At first, it was just a ray of dazzling light that tore apart the dark universe. Then, it exploded. It was as if the universe had reached its end and the end of the world had arrived. The surging energy and blazing radiance shocked the entire realm universe in an instant. One could see the primal chaos at the edge of the universe exploding. It was as if the heavens and earth were being split open once again, establishing a new era. Everyone felt a chill run down their spines. What was happening? Even without the live broadcast, some experts could sense the terrifying phenomenon at the edge of the universe. The great cosmos was pierced through, blasted apart. The explosion of a sentient item, what kind of power was that? This was especially true for this green calabash. It was originally born in the sea of lightning in the primal chaos, nourished by the most powerful natural laws. Even though it hadn't matured yet, it was still world-shocking. When Chu Feng obtained it, its entire body was covered in cracks, left with scars from being crushed by the foreign border's stone millstone. Otherwise, it would be difficult for external forces to injure it. It was precisely because of this that it could disintegrate at any time. That was why it could be detonated today. Otherwise, a illuminator would not be able to destroy a connate gourd even if it was immature. This was like an apocalyptic explosion. The green-skinned calabash disintegrated, and the lightning rules it contained interweaved. It was even more terrifying than the great heavenly tribulation of the illuminator level. In the blazing light, even the demigods were screaming, roaring, and struggling. Zhang Kong's face was pale, and blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. He was burning himself and condensing energy once more. He stared at the terrifying sea of light, ready to slaughter his way over at any moment. At this moment, the most terrifying thing wasn't the green calabash's disintegration, but the strange gray substance that poured out in torrents without the slightest bit of reservation. It was like a gray mushroom cloud rising, drowning that place. For a moment, the entire area was surging with scarlet clouds. That was the blood of a demigod. That was the death of a heavenly illuminator. At the same time, it was accompanied by multicolored light. Souls were breaking apart and burning. Large amounts of anguished wailing sounded. There were quite a number of people on the ship. At first, there were more than 20 illuminators. Some of them had been killed, but there were still more than 10 of them left. In addition to the others, they were all powerhouses. Ghosts were wailing and gods were howling. Everywhere in the underworld universe, the whole world was watching. Everyone was dumbfounded. They could actually reverse the situation at the last moment? Haha, the god of thunder was laughing. His skinny body was covered in cracks, but he was extremely carefree. Although he had escaped from the terrifying explosion just now, his body had almost been destroyed by the strong aftermath. He had even lost his pair of hammers. Sky Blade Wu Xingquan was also in a miserable state. His shiny long blade had already been broken. His hair was disheveled and blood was gushing out. His body was covered with wounds that were so deep that his bones could be seen. As for the Permetha flower, it was beaten back to its original form, dispirited and listless. However, it was still laughing loudly, spitting out a mouthful of resentment. It was extremely happy. In the most central area, 6 or 7 evolvers at the illuminator level disintegrated and died a miserable death. Meanwhile, a demigod came back to life after his death. However, even if he had the death substitution talisman on him, it was of no use. He was killed several times, and in the end, both his body and soul were destroyed. The life substitution talisman was a dead object. It allowed him to revive on the spot so that he wouldn't be able to escape in time. However, the central region was the most dangerous place. Innate energy wreaked havoc as strange substances manifested and howled mournfully. A half-deity had been slaughtered. Even if there were illuminators who weren't in the center of the maelstrom at the edge of the large ship, their bodies would explode and their ruined bodies would escape with their soul light wrapped around them. But in the end, they would still die tragically. The gray substance laughed sinisterly and let out a real laughter. It transformed into a malicious spirit and pounced over to drown him. "No, save me!" Some people cried out in fear. At this moment, they would rather die right away than endure this kind of torment. Their soul light was being nibbled away and eaten by that gray substance. They would never be able to reincarnate for all eternity. The large ship that came from the Yang realm disintegrated and exploded. In the end, everyone was torn into pieces. The difference was that some people were reforming while others died tragically right away. There really are people who escaped, Zhang Kong muttered to himself. He saw a demigod in an incomparably miserable state. He was killed several times in succession and in the end, he dragged half of his ruined body as he charged out. Without a doubt, he was closer to the center. Even the death substitution talisman was useless in the end. He was consumed and escaped at lightning speed. However, his condition wasn't very good. He was entangled by the gray substance. His face was ashen and his body was shriveled up. He bellowed and struggled. Strange, the source of all evil. You actually dare to use this kind of thing. The celestial venerables will kill you and the whole world will attack you. This universe is going to be buried. He was flustered and exasperated. That was because he felt that he wouldn't be able to live for more than 2 years. Even if he was a demigod and was protected by the death substitution talisman, he would only be contaminated a little and not drowned. However, he also knew that there was no solution. It was already too late to run back and seek treatment from the celestial venerables. All right then. Before I die, I'll slaughter the millions and millions of creatures in this universe. Every orthodoxy of every race shall be completely annihilated. This was the madness he felt before his death. He wanted to drag countless people to be buried with him. He was too unwilling. Being entangled by the gray substance was a nightmare. He would undoubtedly die. Bang! He transformed into a beam of light and rushed out. He was about to kill his way into the depths of the Yang Realm universe. Behind him, 2 people also rushed out from the edge of the large ship. They were both at the illuminator level and hadn't died yet. They also wanted to go crazy and massacre the vital planets everywhere. All of you, go to hell. Zhang Kong moved. He wasn't afraid. Instead, he had a smile on his face as if he had been relieved of a burden. He had finally waited until the last moments of his life weren't wasted. Instead, he could unleash the last of his remaining heat. Bang! His physical body disintegrated and turned into an energy source. Divine flames overflowed into the sky. His soul light also disintegrated and filled in. It turned into endless flames that burned together with the heavens. Zhang Kong, the master of the Shilin army commander, was prepared to die. He wasn't guilty, but he wanted to atone for his sins. He didn't want to continue living. He had already died many years ago, but now he was free. His face was reflected in the flames. He was still young, and there were still old friends from the ancient past inside. There were also women who liked him. Those were all his thoughts. That was his ideal country. He wanted to return to the past and visit the ancient past again to change the tragedy of the past. You lunatic! That demigod was shocked and furious. Behind him was a strange substance that smashed over like a wave. This person actually obstructed him like this. He was destroying everything indiscriminately and blocking his path. He was terrified. His face was deathly pale as he roared, "Get lost! Do you know what you're doing? There's no next life to speak of once you're entangled by the gray substance. You'll never be able to reincarnate and will die an extremely tragic death. I don't ask for the next life, nor do I ask about it. What is there to be afraid of? You self-righteous demigod from the Yang realm, I'll send you on your way." Zhang Kong looked at him calmly in the flames. At the final juncture of death, he was calm. He was relieved and relieved. He was incomparably calm and unperturbed. The people I like are all in the ancient times. My good friends, my confidants, my relatives. I'm here. I let you down back then. I went on my way alone, and when I looked back, there was nothing. Nothing was left. Now I'm here. A smile appeared on Zhang Kong's handsome face. How many years had it been? He had always been sickly and his heart was dead. In the end, he shouted loudly like this and ended his life with a smile amidst the flames. Bang! He collided with the demigod. This was the most powerful attack an evolver of the heavenly illumination realm could unleash in his entire life. He didn't hold anything back. His physical body and soul light burned together as they burned through the universe. That demigod let out a mournful cry. He originally had a damaged body and was heavily injured. His entire body was covered in cracks and bloodstains. How could he bear it now? He disintegrated and turned into a rain of blood and shattered soul light. As for the two heavenly illuminators who rushed over with him, they died miserably on the spot. Their bodies and souls were extinguished. No! This demigod roared angrily. He forcefully gathered his soul light, but in the end it was useless. He was entangled by the gray matter that caught up and drowned. Then, he let out a final scream of despair and ended his life just like that. Zhang Kong died. In the final collision, he turned into light and burned to the end. He returned to the eternal darkness. In the distance, on a planet, yellow cattle cried. Sparkling and translucent tears kept rolling down from his eyes as he sobbed. He's my guide and my grandfather. We aren't related by blood, but he's even more important than my own. Yellow cattle cried loudly and was extremely sorrowful. The big black yak and the others didn't feel good in their hearts either as they watched silently. In another star region, Chu Feng's heart also ached. This old handsome man was seeking his own release. Perhaps only in this way could Zhang Kong be at ease and let go of everything. The explosion of the large ship was still in progress. Almost at the same time, a beam of light rushed out from another direction and fled into the primal chaos, accompanied by a miserable cry, "Zhi." Divine Master Huang was beaten back to his original form and lost half of his body, but he actually succeeded in escaping. People were astonished. Did he have such great ability? After that, they guessed that perhaps there was a terrifying divine talisman protecting him as he escaped far away. At the same time, the light emitted by Divine Master Huang brought the old Tiango and the Black Crow out. After escaping from the great explosion, the old Tiango was very miserable. Only his chest and above were left. His death substitution talisman had long been useless, and the Black Crow had also used up his last chance of survival. His whole body was covered in blood as he fell to the edge of the primal chaos together with the old Tiango. He couldn't follow Divine Master Huang's light beam and disappear completely. Run. These two people were as anxious as stray dogs. Like fish that had escaped the net, they scuttled up and began to flee with all their might. "Old dog, where do you think you're going? Leave your dog head behind." The spider lily and the sky blade Wu Xingkuan shouted. They had been staring at the center of the great explosion all along. When they saw the old weasel escape, they were furious and chased after him, just in time to intercept the bird and dog. Roar! The old Tiango roared angrily. Even though he was terrified, he still risked his life and shouted, "Your Yin realm is about to be destroyed. Using the gray matter again and again is courting death. The celestial venerables will punish you together. You've committed a great taboo." Clearly, he was fierce in appearance but weak in heart. *CK Your celestial venerables. Our whole family has enmity with the celestial venerables behind you. I'll kill him sooner or later, shouted the spider lily. Many blue vines shot out at the same time and pierced through the old Tiango, causing him to scream miserably. At this moment, the old Tiango was no longer in his peak state. In addition, he didn't have a death substitution talisman to use. The small half of his body that escaped was trembling with fear in his heart. His aura was naturally weak and his strength had long since decreased. Thus, his body was directly torn apart. A dog's head was sliced apart by the vines and fell straight down. Then, the space between his brows was penetrated. His soul light disintegrated and he died a violent death. The old Tiango let out a weak bark for the last time and completely ended his life. He was too unwilling, but he couldn't change anything. "Ha ha! Your grandpa Prometha finally killed a demigod. My death was worth it. The spider lily laughed loudly. On the other side, Sky Blade Wu Xingquan was even more direct. He turned into a blade and hacked at the old crow. He roared angrily and called out the Kuei's name. Not long ago, the Kuei had self-detonated when facing the old crow and tragically fell here. Caw! The old crow cried out in alarm and anger, but he was also powerless to struggle free. He was hacked to death here and completely died. However, regardless of whether it was the spider lily or Sky Blade Wu Xingquan himself, they were both weakened to the lowest point and didn't have any strength left. They fought to this point and fought a bloody battle with many demigods. The other party had death substitution talismans and couldn't be killed no matter what. The consumption on them was too terrifying. Not far away, the god of thunder roared angrily and erupted with boundless lightning. The ship broke apart. After the explosion, everything gradually calmed down. However, the three demigods didn't die. They charged out murderously towards the god of thunder. These three weren't at the very center. Even though they died more than once, in the end, they still made it through. Their bodies were covered in blood. They roared as they rushed out, wishing to massacre them. Kill! There was nothing much to say. The resurrection lily and heavenly saber Wu Xingquan dragged their exhausted bodies. Even though their bodies were covered in wounds and were about to disintegrate, they did not hesitate to charge forward to save the thunder god. After a fierce battle, the red spider lily was torn apart, and its blue juice splattered everywhere. Sky Blade Wu Xingquan roared furiously. His body turned into a blade, and he slashed at his opponent, cutting him in two. However, the blade that he had turned into broke, and his body was revealed. However, the two demigods were resurrected with great difficulty and were still alive. On the other side, the god of thunder was in a similar situation. That's enough. Your death substitution talismans are useless. Even though we're also an arrow at the end of its flight and have lost our combat strength, I'm confident that we can drag you guys down with us. The red spider lily shouted loudly without the slightest fear. At this moment, his torn body didn't reassemble. Instead, it burned and roared furiously. It turned into light flames that overflowed into the sky and swept forward. Bang! He drowned one person. That demigod was terrified and let out a mournful howl. Let go of me. I'll retreat. I admit that I'm no match for you. We'll both die together like this, and we'll never be seen again in this world. F***ck off. The red spider lily replied. Bang! He completely exploded and dragged this demigod along with him. Both of their soul lights burned the heavens before they dimmed and returned to deathly stillness. The remaining two demigods were horrified. Those from the Een realm cried out involuntarily. This was the ending that the red spider lily had chosen? It made their hearts ache slightly. Hey! In the blink of an eye, a speck of blue light appeared in the darkness. It was only the size of a fist. The red spider lily's true spirit reappeared and said, I'm sending you on your way. I haven't lived enough. Of course, after this life ends, I'm going to reincarnate and go to the Yang realm. I'll fight to the death with all of you without end. Whoosh! In an instant, he disappeared and rushed to the other side of the universe. Where do you think you're going? A demigod wanted to intercept him, but the god of thunder and sky blade stopped him together. You want to stop me? Dream on. This is only a portion of my true spirit. I still have a bit left in the purgatory gate, and I'll reincarnate no matter what. This battle is just a farewell battle. Why did your grandpa Prometha wander around the planet where the purgatory is located for so long? I'm preparing to reincarnate. We'll meet again in the Yang realm. One day, when I rise, I'll definitely kill a celestial venerable. The red spider lily was rather decisive and unyielding. In the end, it shouted loudly again and said, Kid, I said it before that when I faced you, I made a casual move. I didn't let you down by fighting like this. If you enter the Yang realm in the future and find a strange red spider lily, you'll surely recognize me when you come to save me." In the depths of the universe, Chu Feng's heart trembled. He knew that the red spider lily was talking to him. In the final battle, Sky Blade Wu Xingquan transformed his body into a blade, but in the end, he broke into several pieces. However, he still continued to fight and self-destructed in the end. He heavily injured 2 demigods and almost caused them to die. He transformed his body into a blade, and the heavenly blade shattered. Blood dyed the starry sky, and he died just like that. The god of thunder roared angrily. His small body shone and burned fiercely, wanting to burn the heavens. He suddenly stood tall and almost broke the universe. At this moment, everyone in the nether realm saw it. His figure was reflected everywhere in the sea of stars, like a raging lion in battle. He blew up a demigod. His fist was like a rainbow as it penetrated the demigod's head and killed him in the starry sky. "Do you see that? That's my grandfather." In the depths of the starry sky, on an ordinary vital planet, a little boy raised his head and looked at the figure illuminating the firmament. He shouted excitedly and proudly, "Illuminating the heavens!" At this time, the god of thunder was really illuminating the universe and could be seen everywhere. The little boy didn't know his grandfather's state and didn't know that the old man was about to die. "Look, my grandfather is so powerful. He's fighting the bad guys." He was very proud and praised proudly. "Yes, that's Grandpa fighting the bad guys." The little boy's older sister, the girl in white, said while crying. She knew that this was probably the last time they would see their grandfather. At the side, the middle-aged hunter couple's eyes were red as they silently shed tears. Boom! The god of thunder's final attack was incomparably fierce. He blew up the last demigod, and he also fell down. He turned into a bloody mist, light, and energy before dissipating. Chapter 936. The little boy's voice was tender, happy, and proud. He was only 3 or 4 years old, so he didn't know that the god of thunder had already died in that dazzling radiance. This was the last time he saw his grandfather. He was too young and didn't understand. His sister and parents were crying continuously as they knelt on the ground in the end. The war ended, and the demigods from the Yang realm were all dead. Not a single one of the evolved beings at the Illuminator realm could be seen. Only the old weasel left alive and entered the primal chaos. The universe was very quiet. Everyone saw the final splendor before returning to darkness. Although the people from the Yang realm were killed, the price paid by the Yin realm universe was too great. The god of thunder, Sky Blade, Red Spider Lily, and Zhang Kong were all heroes who illuminated an era, but they had all fallen. Not a single one of them survived. For a very long time, there was still a rain of blood in the ancestral lands everywhere, falling on the altars that the god of thunder, Sky Blade, and the others had long been removed. Everyone thought that they had passed away in meditation for many years. Only when they reappeared today did people understand that they had always been around, but now they had truly died in battle at the desolate border of the universe. The current universe was oppressive and gloomy. People weren't willing to open their mouths because they felt uncomfortable after seeing such a tragedy and the final stirring. In the end, it was over. This battle had come to an end, but some people would never appear again. They burned their corporeal bodies in soul light, unafraid of eternal silence, and died in this final battle. What about the gray matter? Chu Feng was the same as everyone else. His eyes were sore and he felt sad. Regardless of whether it was Zhang Kong, Sky Blade, or the god of thunder, they were all very unyielding, and their deaths made people's hearts tremble. However, he was also paying attention to another matter. Where did the gray mist go? He had been staring at it during the big explosion just now and saw how terrifying it was. Even a demigod would howl miserably and die a miserable death after coming into contact with it. How did it disappear in the blink of an eye? There were so many of them, and they were incomparably dense. Just now, there were tens of thousands of beasts galloping and their roars were terrifying, but in the end they all disappeared. He realized that there was a huge problem. If his guess wasn't wrong, the strange matter had already gained intelligence and was extracted from the bodies of hundreds of gods. It had most likely already entered the primal chaos and wanted to cross over. Where did it want to go? Chu Feng frowned deeply. Then, he was alarmed. Could it be that the strange substance was going to the world of the living? Chu Feng's heart trembled violently. Right now, there was a small path between the Yang realm and the chaotic universe that guaranteed that people from the Yang realm could descend upon it. If this strange substance was going in the opposite direction, then its ambitions were truly great and its goals were somewhat terrifying. He always felt that this gray mist made him feel uneasy. It was too sinister and devoured the flesh and soul light of experts every time. This was clearly strengthening itself. I hope it has gone to the world of the living. Otherwise, the world of the dead will not be able to withstand its rampage. In reality, Chu Feng hoped that it was an ordinary gray substance. It looked terrifying, but if it really scattered, then it wouldn't count for much. It would be diluted by the boundless starry sky to the point of being negligible. However, it was psychic. At the edge of the universe, there were some fragments left behind from the disintegration of the large ship. Apart from that, there were also broken weapons dyed with blood. Unfortunately, their soul light had been burned clean, and the so-called blood drop rebirth was impossible to carry out. The fragments of the heavenly blade and the thunder god divine hammer. All of them were telling of how tragic the battle was not long ago. Suddenly, a piece of the metal deck of the battleship that had exploded moved in the primal chaos mist. Then, it was pushed open and a middle-aged man with only half of his body left crawled out. His mouth and nose were full of bloody foam. His face was gloomy and cold with anger and the palpitations of surviving a calamity. He stared coldly at the universe of the dead. What? Someone survived? How is that possible? The people of the universe of the dead were shocked. Then, there was a commotion. The Thunder God, Heavenly Blade, Red Spider Lily, Zhan Kong, and the others paid with their lives and all died in battle. In the end, they still hadn't killed all the people of the Yang realm. There were still experts alive? I'm alive, but I don't have long to live. I'll go to your world of the dead and kill to my heart's content. I'll see who can stop me now. This person said coldly. He couldn't recover in a short period of time. He still had half of his body that was dripping blood continuously. His face was slightly ashen as he was entangled by a very small wisp of the strange substance. He knew he was finished. He wasn't a demigod. He was an evolver at the early stage of the illumination realm. Not long ago, he thought he was dead, but he didn't know why he was brought out of the ship when the old weasel was wrapped in a beam of light and rushed into the primal chaos. He was lucky to survive. The evolvers from the various races of the universe of the dead felt a chill in their hearts when they heard his resentful voice. They felt that things weren't looking good. I'll set off now and carry out a great purge. He roared angrily. He was very crazy because he was going to die. In fact, he really didn't want to die, but he had no chance at all because he was entangled by the strange substance. Crack! Suddenly, the void split open and a few figures rushed out. They threw purple and lustrous objects at him, and then fled into the wormhole for their lives. Rumble! This evolver at the illumination realm was entangled by a wisp of the strange substance. He was very weak, and even his reaction and movements were severely delayed. He didn't dodge and was hit directly. There was a dazzling light and a deafening sound. The universe was blasted through. This was actually 3 heavenly thunder amethyst at the illumination realm. All of them hit him and killed him just like that. This wasn't much of a threat to an evolver at the illumination realm during normal times. How could someone who wasn't at the same level pose a threat to them? It was just like how it was difficult for Chu Feng to kill old Tiango and the others with a green calabash. Now, this expert at the illumination realm couldn't dodge and was blasted to death. The main reason was that his soul light was entangled by the gray substance. The entire universe was silent. This was simply a sudden reversal. Everyone was dumbfounded as they didn't expect such a scene to actually happen. They originally thought that the underworld universe was about to face a great calamity and be massacred. After all the top figures had died in battle, and no one could resist anymore. Who would have thought that this vicious person would die right away? Haha, that's great. This is retribution. A fish that slipped through the net relied on his merits and fortune. What happened in the end? Who asked you to pretend? You were beaten to death as soon as you showed your head. It's good that you died. You were aggrieved to death. I'll send you on your way to meet your grandfather now. The underworld universe was filled with cheers. Everyone felt incomparably carefree and let out a long breath of depression. Even the tragic atmosphere from the few powerhouses who had died in battle earlier had been diluted a little. However, a sigh resounded and shook the sea of stars. It caused the primal chaos to split open and automatically disperse, revealing a vast expanse of land. In that primal chaos, an old man appeared sitting cross-legged on a lotus throne. He had a pair of very long white eyebrows that were more than a foot long and drooped down. His hair was sparse with only a few strands, and he could almost be considered bald. There were a few people beside him. They were all young men and women, as well as middle-aged people. All of them were in high spirits. In addition, the old weasel was also sitting cross-legged on a praying mat beside him. Even though he had escaped with his life, this divine Master Huang still looked flustered and very unnatural. Previously, Divine Master Huang had escaped. Apart from the protection of the divine talisman, the main reason was that this old man sitting cross-legged on the lotus throne had made a move. At this moment, all the evolvers of the various races in the underworld universe shut their mouth. No one was celebrating anymore. It was quiet all of a sudden, and a thick haze appeared in everyone's hearts. They were in complete despair. How was this possible? There was still someone in the primal chaos. Furthermore, this old man with eyebrows that were more than a foot long and was almost bald didn't look like an ordinary evolver at a glance. He was too calm. I've startled Divine Master Huang. The white-browed old man spoke and comforted the old weasel. Thank you, God Su Hong, for saving me. The old weasel returned the salute and said gratefully. Otherwise, he would really have been in trouble. When these words spread, everyone in every part of the underworld universe felt as though they had fallen into an ice cellar. They felt a chill from head to toe. What did they hear? This was a god. Su Hong, a god-grade expert from the Yang realm. Who could match him? According to the Yang realm, under normal circumstances, unless the cultivators of this universe were a realm higher than the Yang realm's people, they wouldn't be able to fight against the evolvers of the Yang realm. The Thunder God, the Sky Blade, and the Red Spider Lily were so strong, but they could only be considered exceptions. Otherwise, how could the old Heavenly Hound, Black Crow, and the others kill so many Illuminati experts in the chaotic universe? Now that a god had come, how were they going to fight against him? It made people feel completely disheartened, and they didn't have the strength to resist at all. Su Hong sat cross-legged on the lotus platform and was as motionless as a mountain. He didn't enter the underworld universe and suppressed his own energy. He didn't dare to emit god-grade energy waves because he had done experiments before. The big abyss would swallow god-grade energy. He was as steady as a rock. He sighed softly again and said, I thought there would be 1 or 2 more Illuminati-ine spirits. At this moment, everyone was horrified as they all realized something. The Yang Realm Illuminati expert, who only had half a body left, was saved by Su Hong. He deliberately left him alive so that he could force the underworld universe to lure out the last big fish. In the end, only a few legendary figures rushed over. They were all at the Saint Realm and threw out violet heavenly thunder crystals at the Illuminati realm. At this moment, the void rumbled. It was only then that people noticed that the space in the distance was sealed by the laws. It was the coordinates where the few legendary figures opened the wormhole. Crack! That place split open and a few elders fell out. They couldn't escape. They were all fixed there and were now released. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. These people flew backward and rushed into the primal chaos. The god Su Hong used an indescribable divine ability to restrain them in front of him. He looked at them again and said, "You are all people with integrity. You are not afraid of death and dare to attack a Illuminati with your lowly bodies. You are worthy of respect. I'll give you a quick death. Be on your way." His eyes flashed and pierced through these people like a sharp sword. Not only did he see through the secrets in their soul light, but he also killed them and turned them all into dust. The few famous figures of virtue and prestige in the underworld universe were all saints, but they were so weak in front of such a person from the Yang realm that it made one's heart ache. His eyes flashed, and the bodies and souls of these people were destroyed. In the face of absolute power, all struggles were lowly, futile, and powerless. Everyone from the underworld completely lost confidence. They never expected that even the gods from the Yang realm would appear and keep watch in the primal chaos. There would be no suspense next. After thinking about it carefully, everyone could only sigh. Even the chaotic universe with gods was suppressed. How could the evolvers from the Yang realm not have experts of this level? At this moment, even Chu Feng felt a sense of powerlessness. He stood there silently and didn't move at all. In the end, a whole ship of people died. It was too sudden, and it was accompanied by a strange substance. Even I couldn't save them in time, nor did I have the strength to fully touch the ship, said Su Hong. Then, he raised his head and put away that wisp of regret. Chu Feng, come over. I won't take your life. I only want something in your hand. Su Hong's snow-white eyebrows trembled slightly as he said this calmly. His eyes were deep, as if he wanted to see through the starry sky of the underworld universe. Chu Feng was silent and didn't respond. At this moment, the primal chaos mist curled up again, causing the old man on the lotus seat to become somewhat blurry. His bald head was very bright, and he sat there quietly without moving. One of the men and women standing beside him spoke. A young man spoke with a calm voice and an indifferent expression. Chu Feng, I was entrusted by junior sister Linoi. Originally, after seeing you, I wanted to help you on your journey and guide you into the Tao. However, I already know that you killed the Dai Tengu, ambushed the disciples of the four religions, and provoked the Yang realm again and again. I'm already powerless. Your crimes are unforgivable. When Chu Feng heard the news about Linoi, his heart trembled and he thought of many things. Back then, she left Mount Lao and was never heard from again. He didn't expect that she actually had a connection with the Yang realm. However, he soon calmed down. He looked at the indifferent young man and felt an indescribable feeling. It was as if he was doing charity for him, as if he was giving face to Linoi and wanted to help the poor relatives of the Yang realm, but, in the end, he didn't plan to help them anymore. Chu Feng, since God Su Hong is here and has already pardoned your death sentence, you should hurry over and not make a mistake. The indifferent young man spoke again. Chu Feng, come, let's have a chat. I said I won't kill you, so I will definitely do it. Su Hong's expression was gentle. Chapter 937. That young lady's tone was calm, but it was full of contempt, preaching, and intimidation. This made the evolvers of the Yin realm feel indignant, but what could they say? Now, the situation was worse than the person. The situation of this world was worrying, and it was indeed not a match for the people of the Yang realm. This made people feel powerless and even somewhat hopeless. Chu Feng didn't say anything and looked up at the cold starry sky. It was very dark and only a few dim stars could be seen. "Don't worry, I'll give you time to think," said Su Hong. He wore a gentle smile on his face as he sat cross-legged on the lotus throne. His foot-long white eyebrows drooped, and his entire being was calm and peaceful. Although he looked easygoing and had a smile on his face, no one thought he was a good person. If he didn't get a satisfactory answer, he was bound to make a move. Just a moment ago, a few legendary martial saints had been instantly killed by his gaze while he was smiling. After a short period of silence in the depths of the starry sky, people were guessing how Chu Feng would choose. Now they really couldn't see any hope, and there was no way out. Chu Feng seemed to be standing on a lonely rock in hell. One step forward was an abyss, and one step back was also an abyss with faintly discernible waves of magma. Who could resist a god when he came? At this moment, all the evolvers who stood on Chu Feng's side felt that the whole sky had lost its luster. Life was so gloomy, and there was a suffocating and despairing sense of oppression. On a small planet in a certain remote galaxy, the originally scattered black yak, yellow cattle, old donkey, and the others gathered again. They were all worried about Chu Feng. They were anxious. Was there really no hope? "Perhaps there's only a ray of light if we ask that person from the great abyss to take action," said Lady Shi. This was the only candidate they could think of after discussing. The heavenly blade was broken, and the god of thunder's blood splashed across the starry sky. These powerhouses were all dead, and there were no more experts in the Yin realm. Moreover, even if those heroes were to come back to life, they wouldn't be a match for a god. The black yak frowned and felt that it was difficult. "Is that person in the great abyss Princess Yao Yao?" According to Chu Feng, her eyes were absent-minded and her gaze was unfocused, as if she was wandering in the abyss out of instinct. It was very difficult to summon her. At the same time, they thought that even if that woman was the physical body left behind by Yao Yao from ancient times, her body would most likely be very strong, but her spiritual willpower hadn't reached the god level. On the other hand, a true god-level expert had arrived in the mortal realm. At this moment, the old donkey was grumbling. Some people in the Yang realm had death substitution talismans, which made him very indignant. Big Black Yak, Lady Shi, Yellow Cattle, and the others ignored him. Ouyang Feng cast a sidelong glance at the old donkey and said, "You're from an aristocratic family of scholars? Even ordinary people can think of this problem. What's there to complain about? It's obvious." Even the celestial venerables themselves were afraid and unwilling to descend into the netherworld universe. Naturally, they had to give the Pathfinders a death substitution talisman to ensure that they could survive. Otherwise, who would be willing to give their lives to the best of their abilities? It was just that the death substitution talisman was too precious, and it was impossible to give it to everyone. Yellow Cattle said, "When the great abyss sucked away the celestial venerable's decree, it was a shock to the people of the Yang realm. Their top experts didn't dare to cross over. I think that God is also very cautious and doesn't dare to walk out of the primal chaos." They believed that only the great abyss could save Chu Feng now. There was an unfathomable source of energy there. But no one could awaken everything there, so how could they activate and stimulate it? Time was pressing, and they had a quick and urgent discussion, but they didn't have any effective methods. In the end, Lady She stood up and said, "It seems that I need to go there personally and try to stop it." At the same time, she also bid farewell to these people. Originally, she was also destined to return to the Yang realm. And this time, those people most likely wouldn't dare to attack her if she rushed over, but they might not listen to her dissuasion. Instead, they would forcefully bring her back to the Yang realm and send her to her family to form a good relationship with her bloodline. Lady Shi's family had a great background in the Yang realm. But the development of the matter exceeded everyone's expectations. The change was too fast. Mist surged in the primal chaos as another vermilion ship appeared. It stuck close to the Celestial Venerable's decree and approached the Een realm. A person stood on this not-so-big ancient ship. He looked young, but he was incomparably calm. His hands were behind his back, and his entire body was enveloped in a layer of divine rings. He was extremely dignified. No matter how one looked at it, this didn't seem like a youth. He was too quiet and unmoving like a mountain. Not even a single strand of hair fluttered in the wind. He was like a stone sculpture, but also like a divine statue. "Senior brother Jiang Zhou, you've also come." Su Hong spoke. His snow-white eyebrows were slightly raised as he greeted the young man on the vermilion ship. This was an expert that even he had to call senior brother. Without a doubt, this was a god-level character. Another unshakable super-expert had arrived, causing the people of the Een realm to completely lose their morale. They didn't even hope for miracles anymore, so what did they have to fight with? "Su Hong, I haven't seen you in 100 years, but you're still as elegant as ever." The young-looking Jiang Zhou on the vermilion ship spoke. They didn't belong to the same celestial venerables. Right now, the two of them were only calling each other out of courtesy. Only now did people notice that there was an old man sitting cross-legged on a praying mat beside Jiang Zhou. He had a head of white hair and was very calm with his eyes closed. There were many tortoiseshells beside this old man. He had been deducing something not long ago. On the other side, the old weasel instantly understood that this was an expert in the field of divination. He was at least a divine master and was only above him, not below him. "The celestial venerable's Tao body has descended, and they won't allow us to compromise with the Een spirits." Jiang Zhou spoke again, and this time, he revealed such an explosive piece of news. Not to mention the people of the Een realm, even Su Hong, who came from the Yang realm, was shocked and then trembled. As for the Een realm, while the cultivators of all races were shocked, their souls were palpitating. They felt a chill from head to toe. This was beyond their imagination. The celestial venerables had arrived? The Een realm had no idea how strong an evolver of this level was. They only knew that they were existences that looked down on all kinds of experts in the Yang realm and were known as the ancestors of a region. "This is the Tao body of the Supreme Martial Celestial Venerables?" Su Hong's voice trembled as he asked. Jiang Zhou nodded and told them that this was a Tao body that had fused with an innate divine item. It had already descended into the chaotic universe and was waiting for the result. Regardless of whether it was Su Hong or the old weasel, both of their scalps went numb. This kind of ancestor-level existence actually personally descended into the world. This was too shocking. Although it was only an innate Tao body, and not the real body, it was enough to prove that the celestial venerables attached great importance to this matter and wanted a certain item from the Een realm. At the same time, the people of the Yang realm realized that the Een realm was most likely going to have a reign of blood and excitement. Before the Supreme Martial Celestial Venerables rose to power, his Tao companion was killed by a ghost. He hated Een spirits the most. Sure enough, Jiang Zhou spoke and said, "What do you mean by not killing and giving the people of the Een realm time to consider? This is meaningless. The Supreme Martial Celestial Clan will not give them the chance to bargain." When he said these words, his killing intent surged. At that moment Chu Feng's heart went cold. He was secretly contacting Blackie, Yellow Cattle and the others. He told them not to think of any methods and to quickly disperse to avoid a disaster. Although he was angry in his heart, he had to admit that in front of absolute strength, everything seemed so pale and powerless. There was simply no way to resist. "We will disperse and protect ourselves, but you quickly go to the abyss," Yellow Cattle anxiously suggested. They wouldn't try to stop a chariot like a mantis trying to stop a chariot in a situation where death was certain. However, they were truly worried for Chufeng. This was a hopeless situation. Even the Yang realm's celestial venerables Tao bodies had descended. Even if the abyss were to awaken, it wouldn't be able to change anything, right? At the edge of the primal chaos, Su Hong thought to himself. Sure enough, after the disciples of the supreme martial celestial clan came, they would stir up a rain of blood and foul wind. Jiang Zhou looked young, but he was very calm and unmoving like a boulder. At that moment, he only spoke indifferently and said, Su Hong, why bother? I know you're not killing him now just to play it safe. You want to obtain the treasures on him first, but you'll still have to kill him afterward. We're different. We're more direct. We do whatever we think in our hearts. Then, he spoke frankly to the underworld cosmos. He needed all the information regarding Chufeng and wanted to understand the people and things related to him. This was to make a move against Chufeng. Moreover, this was also to make some evolvers surrender. Without a doubt, Jiang Zhou already knew about Chufeng. From the fact that he brought along that powerful diviner with him, he knew that he had come prepared. The underworld was silent and every race was in awe. Everyone understood that a great revolution had arrived. The people of the Yang realm were seething with murderous intent, and even the celestial venerables had come in person. Even if the celestial venerables didn't come and only stayed in the chaotic universe, it was enough to show their attitude. This was an upheaval of a supremely terrifying level. After the silence, some people were angry. The people of the Yang realm were unscrupulous, and it made people feel humiliated. At the same time, there were also people who were silent and felt powerless. There were even famous figures who started to cry. They felt that this day was too dark. No matter what they did or how hard they tried, they couldn't change the current situation. God of Thunder, Skyblade, Zhan Kong Wu. There was an extremely old big name that had survived from the ancient times. He couldn't help but shed tears and sob. He felt great pity for the deaths of the God of Thunder, Skyblade, and the others. Even though those heroes died, they still couldn't change anything. The blood of those people hadn't even dried before they passed away. In the end, the reality of the underworld cosmos became even more cruel. After the blood of those powerhouses splashed across the starry sky, what should come would still come. The enemy was still there, and they were even more powerful. Some people looked up at the sky and felt that it was too gray. The whole world and their entire lives lacked brilliance. However, there were countless evolvers and all kinds of people. There were also people who were excited and slightly trembling. Some races even sent out representatives. Very soon, at the edge of the underworld cosmos, some people wore black cloaks and covered their whole bodies. They went to meet the people of the Yang realm and immediately presented all kinds of information. Yes, I understand. Jiang Zhou nodded. When they saw this scene, many people from all over the universe felt their bodies go cold. Different people made different choices. Many evolvers realized that Chu Feng's ending might be very miserable and that he would be forced to the end of the road. It's really sad. A magnificent cosmos has actually fallen to such a state. There are only a few outsiders, but they're already suppressing us to the point where we can't even raise our head. What kind of era is this? What kind of sorrow is this? Those who lower their heads and have no backbone, I'm not saying that you guys don't have integrity, but I just feel that being born in this world is too sad. Some famous figures stood out and their voices trembled in the starry sky. All of them were in great pain, but they couldn't change anything. At this moment, Jiang Zhou used his powerful soul light to see through everything and understand all the information. He then raised his head and said, "Perhaps you guys are very unconvinced, but this is reality. This is a narrow space, nothing more than a pond. You guys can't see a wider world." Then, he revealed a smile for the first time, but his white teeth made him look somewhat terrifying. He said, Chu Feng, your rise to power can be considered fast. Perhaps you think you're the chosen one of the starry skies, but I want to speak the truth. You're not bad in this small pond, but you're still lacking when compared to the youngsters overflowing with talent in the Yang realm. You're not worthy of us showing mercy and nurturing you. Perhaps these words were very ear-piercing, but this was reality. The celestial venerable asked me to leave behind some Yin realm seeds, but unfortunately, you're not worthy of my discerning eyes. Leave the treasure and go on your way. At this time, Lady Shi arrived. She opened her arms and stopped him without fear. The little princess of the Zhou family. Someone was astonished and recognized her immediately. Lady Shi had been missing for a long time. The Zhou family of the Yang realm was a colossus and had once issued a sky-high bounty to find her whereabouts. Regardless of whether it was Su Hong, Jiang Zhou, or the old weasel, they were all rather astonished and revealed odd expressions. This was an unexpected surprise. There would definitely be generous rewards for sending her back. Jiang Zhou calmly listened to Lady Shi's narration, but he quickly refused and said, "Princess Shi, I'll send you back to the Yang realm. Don't participate in the matters here, it's too complicated." As he spoke, he sealed Lady Shi and sent her into the cabin. Then, Jiang Zhou walked out and looked at the old man sitting cross-legged on the praying mat beside him. He revealed a look of respect and whispered a few words to him, asking him for guidance on something. In an instant, Jiang Zhou raised his head and looked at the sea of stars because the old man had told him a coordinate. "Chu Feng, I'll send you on your way," Jiang Zhou said calmly as a phantom flew out from within his body. He didn't dare to move his real body and only activated a mirror-level incarnation to enter the Yin realm universe. Then, there was a boom in a certain part of the sea of stars. A large silver-white hand waved down and covered this part of the universe, covering many planets beneath it. This was the terrifying character of the Yang realm. Jiang Zhou launched a ruthless attack on Chu Feng. Chapter 938. Meteors flew in all directions, stained with blood. The planets in this region were covered in blood, and some vital planets were split into pieces. They were easily destroyed by that large hand. This was the habitat of the fire ape race. It was a high-level planet of a level 7 civilization. More than 10 billion fire apes had perished, and their blood had splashed across the starry skies. In this region, there were 2 planets that belonged to the human race. Both of them were exuberant, green, and rich with spiritual energy. These were 2 high-level planets that belonged to a level 6 evolutionary civilization. However, they had disintegrated, and tens of billions of people had died. The moment the calamity appeared, the famed mountains and great rivers cracked like porcelain and then exploded. Many cultivators from some famous evolutionary sects rushed into the sky, but they couldn't change their fate. Like dumplings, they fell from the sky in droves, stained with blood. They died one after another under the unfathomable pressure of the outer realm's energy. The entire firmament was dyed with blood. Especially when that large hand descended and gradually approached, it became even more terrifying. Even from a distance, the mountains and rivers were collapsing. All the living beings on the ground, regardless of whether they were humans or evolvers of other races, were all turned into clouds of bloody mist. As for ordinary people, there was no need to talk about them. They couldn't even make a sound as they disappeared from the ground, leaving behind scarlet specks as they were squeezed into a bloody paste by the energy. It was the end of the world. The starry skies were dimming. Even the sun had exploded, not to mention the others. Jiang Zhou had only mobilized one incarnation. He had merely pressed down with one hand, yet this habitable land was drenched in blood. The starry skies had been pierced through by his palm, and nothing was left. Chu Feng. In the distant depths of the universe, the black yak, yellow cattle, and Ouyang Feng were shouting. This was an experience 100 times more terrifying than a nightmare. They had witnessed with their own eyes that the starry skies were surging with bloody light and countless resentful spirits wailing in the world. Buzz. That large hand swiped lightly, and regardless of whether it was the blood or the obsession of billions of creatures, they all vanished into thin air. In the face of absolute power, all unwillingness and humiliation seemed so pale. Jiang Zhou's single attack had killed countless people. Billions of humans had been killed, and the fire ape race had also been exterminated. It was a desolate scene. Animal, a famous expert scolded angrily. But what could they do? Jiang Zhou stood in the void with a calm expression. There were no ripples on his face, as if he had just done something insignificant. He was sensing and searching for special items. He was confident that under this palm, no living creature in the universe of this pond could survive. They would all be killed. In reality, in that instant just now, the two ancient saints of the fire ape race had soared into the sky, and the four quasi-sages of the human race had struggled to charge into the sky, but in the end they had all fallen back down. These experts were too weak in front of him. Jiang Zhou's eyes flickered, and soon after, a glaring beam of light shot out. His heavenly eye blossomed with terrifying symbols as he searched for Chu Feng's remains. In fact, when he launched such an attack, he also activated his most powerful divine instinct to capture the reaction of the treasure and investigate further. Chu Feng, brother, is this your miserable end? Jiang Zhou, you son of a bitch! You're a cold-blooded animal that's worse than pigs and dogs. I'll fight my way into the world of the living sooner or later. The bodies of Big Black Yak and the others trembled. Their eyes were bloodshot, and it was very difficult for them to accept this cruel reality. It was only a palm, but that side of the starry sky had been pierced through, and Chu Feng had been deduced to be there. This kind of ending made them feel very uncomfortable. The Yin Realm universe was deathly silent, and the evolvers of every race felt cold from head to toe. Even their souls seemed to have been sealed in ice, and they had fallen into an ice cellar in hell. On this day people felt very cold. Even some hot-blooded youths hugged their heads and squatted on the ground, on the verge of collapse. This really dealt a blow to people's faith, and some people cried silently. Some people felt sad for Chu Feng, but even more people felt sad for this cruel reality. They couldn't see any light at all, and this day was too dark. There were only a few people from the Yang realm, yet they could suppress this part of the starry sky to the point where there was no light. This was too lamentable. Chu Feng is dead? Apart from Big Black Yak, Ouyang Feng, Yellow Cattle, and the others, many evolvers in other places finally realized that the storm in the great era of change was very fierce. In people's minds, Chu Feng was like a tenacious creature that couldn't be beaten to death. He had endured many hardships and never died, but now, he couldn't withstand a single blow from Jiang Zhou. The difference was too great. Jiang Zhou searched, but he actually couldn't find any special objects left behind. Time flowed backward. Not long ago, Chu Feng's heart was suppressed to the extreme, and he experienced a calamity of extinction. He immediately took out the stone box and put himself inside, hiding inside. Qin Luoyin's corpse and himself were inside the stone box, and it could barely fit inside. After that, the big hand arrived the instant he closed the box. The void shattered, and the stone box drew an indescribable trajectory. There wasn't the slightest energy fluctuation as it rushed into the crack in the starry sky and disappeared. At this moment, Jiang Zhou's spiritual soul light erupted and enveloped all things. Moreover, the big hand restrained all matter, including the things in the crack in the void. Heaven's things obscured themselves? Although Chu Feng was in the box, he felt the changes in space. It was as if he was escaping far away at an extremely fast speed, and his heart wasn't calm at all. He had always known that the stone box wasn't simple, and now, it was continuously proven that this item was even more extraordinary than he had imagined. In the end, the stone box left along the crack in space and rushed into an ineffable star field. It was as if it had walked through a wormhole. Jiang Zhou didn't know or sense anything. His powerful soul light couldn't sense anything. This astonished him. He searched this part of the starry sky for a long time, but he didn't discover anything all along. At the edge of the primal chaos, Jiang Zhou's true body received the feedback. His eyes lit up as he felt that it had exceeded his expectations. He lowered his head and consulted the old man sitting cross-legged on the praying mat. Heaven's things don't appear, and the supreme treasure obscures itself. That artifact has awakened slightly and is being used by that Een spirit. That old man on the scarlet ship spoke. He opened his eyes and deduced the situation. An item that even a celestial deity yearned for naturally had its terrifying and extraordinary aspects. After Jiang Zhou received the hint, he knew that he had been careless. It would have been good if that part of the void had been sealed, and he could have pierced through it with his palm. That treasure could have used this power to escape. No matter, it hasn't truly awakened. It's just a slight indication. Let's deduce a bit more. The old man started after he finished speaking, but very soon, he directly coughed out large mouthfuls of blood. His entire body was burning with divine splendor, and his body withered up a lot in an instant. He fell on the deck with his face ashen. Old divine teacher, what happened to you? Jiang Zhou was gobsmacked. The old man was a peak divine teacher level existence, surpassing the old weasel. This item is formed by nature and cannot be grasped. Forcefully deducing it will take one's life. The old man sat up with difficulty. His mouth was full of bloody froth, and he still had lingering fears. He opened his mouth again and said, "Fortunately, you guys brought all the information about this Chu Feng, and even his remaining blood as well as his clothes and hair. I'll use him as the main body to deduce. Even if that supreme treasure conceals heaven's mysteries, I can still deduce a trace of the truth. However, I need Taoist Huang's help." When the old weasel heard this, he directly got up. He was also a divine teacher that was invited over, and while he was unconvinced, he also wanted to do his best to give a heavenly deity's disciple some face. The two of them joined hands. In front of them, large amounts of tortoise shells shone, and then they burned. Then, they both coughed out large mouthfuls of blood, and in that instant, they were all skin and bones. This shocked everyone. How could seizing heaven's mysteries be this terrifying? It was even more dangerous than a life-and-death battle, even more terrifying. Pooh! The old divine teacher fell on his back and fainted. The weasel cried out and also spat out blood as he fell onto the deck. His eyes were unfocused, and he continuously swung his large tail. Everyone hurriedly treated them. Only after a period of bustling about did the two great divine teachers wake up. How formidable! That supreme treasure is too heaven-defying. Even deducing Chu Feng almost made this old man suffer a calamity. Truly is terrifying. Chu Feng should have been covered by that mysterious object, and that is why it wasn't easy to make a divination. However, there are some clues. The old divine teacher spoke, giving them a rough coordinate. The weasel nodded, feeling a wave of lingering fear. Just now, the two of them were actually so dangerous. He felt a type of fear and powerlessness, and he truly didn't want to continue. This location is inauspicious. Everyone's expressions changed. Regardless of whether it was Jiang Zhou, Su Hong, or the two great divine teachers, their expressions were all unsightly. That was because that place wasn't very far from the Great Abyss. At this time, after Chu Feng felt calm, he immediately opened the stone box to reveal a crack. After seeing where it was, he drew in a breath of cold air. After passing through the crack in the starry sky, he actually arrived at this place. It was the Great Abyss. He rapidly crossed the void and approached the Great Abyss. In reality, He had already realized that there was no one in the Yin realm who could fight against the people from the Yang realm. Perhaps this was the only place that could make the divine-level experts feel apprehensive. How can I let you guys do as you wish? If there's really no other way, I'll throw the stone box into the great abyss. Chu Feng stood at the edge of the great abyss and felt a terrifying suction force. If it wasn't for the stone box in his bosom, he would have been directly swallowed up. At the same time, there was a powerful radioactive substance here, as well as a terrifying energy. Swoosh! He entered the stone box once again. There were many star remains in this area that had been assimilated by the energy of the great abyss. They floated in the dark void and were riddled with holes from the radiation. This place absorbed energy and also produced a terrifying radiation. Chu Feng hid here. If the situation wasn't right, he was prepared to rush into the great abyss at any time and leave nothing behind. Jiang Zhou arrived almost in a flash. His movements were too fast, and his enormous figure far exceeded the size of a star. He stood there, but he didn't dare to release divine-level energy and only used his incarnation at the illuminator level. Chu Feng, you're quite lucky to have escaped to this place. But this time, there's no future. I'll sweep through every inch of the void and catch you. Now, the whole world was paying attention to Jiang Zhou. After knowing that he had arrived outside the great abyss, everyone was shocked and was still looking for Chu Feng. Demon King Chu hadn't been killed? Suddenly, there was a clamor in the starry sky. Some hot-blooded youths raised their heads again. Now, they were incomparably longing for Chu Feng to survive. This could also be considered the last hope of their resistance. Live, you must live on. Many people murmured softly. They were incomparably nervous because this seemed to be related to some kind of obsession in their hearts. Previously, these people were in despair and thought that there was no hope in the netherworld. Their beliefs had collapsed, but now it was like they were grasping at the last straw. Even though they still couldn't see the light of dawn, they still couldn't help but want to reach out and grab it. Jiang Zhou's soul light was too majestic. It swept through this region and couldn't reach far. There wasn't any substance that could hide from his soul light as it covered every inch of space. But to his surprise, he still couldn't find it. The heavens are concealing themselves to the extreme. My soul light should be close, but it's still being deceived. In that case, I'll personally go through every substance. Jiang Zhou had a smile on his face. He wasn't disappointed, but he was getting more and more interested. He raised his hand, and many broken star remains flew into his large hand rapidly. One by one, they were turned into fine powder by him. He was searching carefully and wanted to turn this place over. Chu Feng sighed softly. He knew he couldn't hide it anymore and that he would be involved very soon. In reality, that enormous soul light just now was overly cautious and didn't dare to approach the pitch-black boundary of the great abyss. Otherwise, the stone box might have been discovered. But Chu Feng knew that as time went on, Jiang Zhou would definitely be in danger. He might even dare to pry into the great abyss and would definitely discover him. Chu Feng put the stone box into his bosom and walked to the edge of the great abyss on his own. Most of his body was in there, and he was prepared to sink down at any time. Jiang Zhou turned around. Even though he was very far away, what kind of character was he? He reacted immediately and discovered Chu Feng's vital signs. Chapter 939. Jiang Zhou wore a calm and composed smile on his face. Everything was under his control, and he was sure that the object was on Chu Feng's body. The abyss was dark and quiet. Normally, there were no waves. It was the most terrifying place in the Yin realm where no one was willing to step foot. But now, it had become the focus of the whole world. Unfortunately, even the heavenly eye couldn't capture a clear image. Moreover, it was intermittent. Chu Feng sighed softly. He didn't expect to fall to this step. There was really no way out. His expression was calm as he began to sink. Since he had no choice, he would throw himself into the abyss. He definitely wouldn't hand over the stone box. Wait a moment. Jiang Zhou's expression changed when he saw how resolute he was. He didn't dare to use laws that were too powerful here. Moreover, they were so far away. If he really attacked, he was afraid he would lose the stone box completely if he couldn't imprison Chu Feng. Animal, what else do you want to say? Chu Feng spoke. At this point, there was really no need to say anything more. There was also no need to give this person a good attitude. He would never forget that palm not long ago. Jiang Zhou had destroyed 3 vital planets and killed billions of lives. It was too cold-blooded and cruel. At that moment, Chu Feng's heart twitched and his eyes turned red. However, he was powerless to change anything. The people of the Yang realm didn't treat the creatures of this universe as humans and killed them casually. To Jiang Zhou, the destruction of billions of people was like crushing ants. He didn't feel guilty at all. If you jump into the abyss, your friends will die miserably. This isn't a threat, but a fact. Jiang Zhou's smile was a little cold. Shock and anger appeared on Chu Feng's face. Although he knew the other party wasn't a good person and had already guessed all kinds of possibilities, this kind of experience was still unbearable. This was his weakness, but could he compromise? He really wasn't willing. In this life, I'll go first. Chu Feng clenched his teeth and was about to jump into the abyss. Wait, I don't want them to die. I never threaten people and I disdain doing so. I'm just telling you a fact. Why don't you die a little later? Take a look at my decision first. Actually, I don't want to kill. Jiang Zhou stopped him. His words were neither hurried nor slow, and he was very calm. At the same time, at the edge of the primal chaos, the old priest and the weasel had already finished their deductions. They told Jiang Zhou and Su Hong some coordinate. Very soon, Jiang Zhou's incarnation received feedback from the Great Abyss. He revealed a faint smile and told Chu Feng where the Black Yak, Ouyang Feng, Zhou Quan, and Yellow Cattle were hiding. These people had all been divined and had nowhere to hide. Chu Feng's pupils constricted and his body stiffened. He really wanted to jump into the abyss, but he hesitated. If he jumped, what would happen to those people? He knew that the other party wanted to break down his firm convictions step by step, to make him turn back and walk out of the abyss. At this moment, Jiang Zhou was very gentle. He revealed a smile and transmitted his voice. Why don't we do a test? You're going to die anyway, so let's test the good and evil of human nature at the last moment. Let's test whether the friendship between you people is firm or not. After that, he turned around and said to the evolvers from the Yin Realm universe, Now, Chu Feng is here. Is there anyone willing to come here and die in his place? As long as it's Chu Feng's good friends or those who have close relations with him dare to come here, I'll let Chu Feng go. Of course, you have to die yourself and die in Chu Feng's place, Jiang Zhou emphasized, calm and unruffled in the midst of chaos. After Chu Feng saw this scene, he immediately sank into the abyss. He didn't want the other party to realize such malicious thoughts. It was too sinister. It's just a test of human nature. If you stay there, I won't kill a single one of you. If you jump down, I'll kill them all. Jiang Zhou quickly transmitted his voice using soul light. He was completely nervous inside and was afraid that all his efforts would be in vain. Chu Feng's gaze was ice-cold and he was incomparably hostile. At the last moment, he floated there and endured it. That was because he saw a speck of white light emerging at the bottom of the endless darkness of the abyss, and it was slowly rising. F***ck your grandpa's heretic god from the Yang realm. At this moment, Big Black Yak, Ouyang Feng, Yellow Cattle, and the others couldn't help but curse. They knew that they couldn't save Chu Feng even if they rushed over. Now that Jiang Zhou was so unbridled and said such a thing, he was completely toying with them. The so-called ugliness and kindness of human nature and the test of friendship were all excuses and tools. In reality, he wanted to torture everyone and break down Chu Feng's fighting spirit. Even though I know you're a shameless bastard, your Grandpa Ox still can't help but stand out. If I go over, will you let Chu Feng go? Me too. Yellow Cattle and the others also stood out. Hee-haw, hee-haw. Gods from the Yang realm, your Grandpa Donkey greets the 18 generations of females in your family. The group was furious and cursed here. We don't have much time. We only need one person at the moment. Is there anyone willing to die in place of Chu Feng? Jiang Zhou wore a faint smile on his face as he asked again, and faced the Yin realm. I am the Mastiff King of Kunlun Mountain. My current coordinates are. The Mastiff King spoke on the Black Blood platform. He roared and stood out directly, expressing that he was willing to die in place of Chu Feng. Your Grandpa Ox is also here. Almost at the same time, Big Black Yak and the others started to speak, but the Mastiff King was the first to stand out. There's no need to say more. Jiang Zhou sneered and disappeared from outside the abyss. But the next moment, he returned very quickly, carrying the Mastiff King. At this level, it was too easy to move unhindered through the starry skies. I'll kill all 19 generations of your ancestors. Big Black Yak and the others glared so hard that their eyes were about to split open. They roared one after another. Through the intermittent images captured by the heavenly eye, all of them were seething with anger. That was because they saw Jiang Zhou cruelly carrying the Mastiff King. He broke many of the bones in his body and threw him at the edge of the abyss. His whole body was covered in blood. These people were extremely furious. They wanted to drive the ancestral demon's cauldron over and fight it out with him. Don't come. Chu Feng's eyes were also bloodshot, but he still roared like this. He knew that even if he was hot-blooded and had an unyielding will to fight, it was useless. In the end, he wasn't a match and could only die in vain. The Mastiff King also spoke weakly and said, Don't come. There's no need to follow the path that the Yang Realm evil god has arranged. I stood out like this to prove that he's very disgusting. You're Jiang Zhou, right? Your Grandpa Mastiff King is here. Do you have the guts? Will you let my brother Chu Feng go? Brother! A group of great demons shouted in the starry skies. Yao Yao, is that you? Come quickly. In the abyss, Chu Feng clenched his fists tightly and looked at the dark depths of the Forbidden Land. He hoped that the white light was the reappearance of the ancient Yao Yao's corporeal body. And at this moment, he was incomparably eager to become stronger. In the end, in this world, strength spoke louder. What was black or white? What was good or evil? Without a sufficiently powerful trump card, everything he said was pale and powerless. Jiang Zhou looked at the Mastiff King and said, I'm a man of my word. You came to die in Chu Feng's place, so I'll let him go for now and not take his life. Yes, you can go on your way. Stop! Shouted Chu Feng. The other party was too vicious. These were words that stabbed at his heart. He wanted to let him see a bloody scene and force him to submit. What did he say about not intimidating or threatening? Naturally, it was all false. He wanted to let him see this kind of cruel scene and shake his heart. I hate it when people talk to me like this, said Jiang Zhou calmly. Moreover, with a snap of his fingers, the Mastiff King exploded and a bloody mist scattered. Jiang Zhou, you motherf asterisk cur. Chu Feng wanted nothing more than to produce divine energy and kill him immediately. His eyes were in pain and his heart felt like it was being twisted by a knife. It was too unbearable. The Mastiff King had rushed over to die in his place, yet he was killed just like this. Jiang Zhou laughed and said, You hate me and loathe me. So what? Do you have that kind of power? An ant howling in front of a deity can only appear petty and laughable. Then, he pointed out with a finger. The Mastiff King's bloody mist turned into ashes and completely disappeared, but a weak soul light was left behind. The Mastiff King's true spirit hadn't been extinguished and was still here. This Mastiff can be considered to have a strong sense of brotherhood. He really dared to come and throw away his life for you. Yes, not bad. Jiang Zhou looked at the great abyss and said to Chu Feng, "Now, I'll give you guys another chance. This Mastiff will die in your place, but it won't be considered complete annihilation. If you come up and die in place of this Mastiff once, no, you just have to offer him your blood and carry out a blood sacrifice. I'll let his soul light go and recovering won't be a problem." Evil god from the Yang realm, you're disgusting, aren't you? You don't keep your word and now you're still shamelessly threatening me. Do you still have any shame? The Mastiff King bellowed. Even though his soul light was very dim, he was still unyielding. At the same time, he looked at Chu Feng and said, "Brother, don't pay attention to him." Back then, people from the Great Qi dynasty rushed over from Earth's Laozhan star passage and I was captured alive by them. It was you who saved me. Even if I die for you once today, I'm willing to do so. Don't come over. Back then, a maid from the Great Qi dynasty had captured the Mastiff King and crippled him. She beat him back to his original form and tied a chain around his neck to humiliate him to the extreme. It was Chu Feng who saved him and healed him. The Mastiff King valued friendship and righteousness. This was originally a friendship that had gone through life and death together. In addition to this, he naturally didn't fear death even more and was willing to help Chu Feng suffer. He's too malicious. Kill him. In the distant star field, the big black yak, yellow cattle, and the others were resentful. They decided to throw caution to the wind and communicated with the demonic ancestral cauldron, asking if it could fight against this so-called god. I'm just a weapon. Even though I was very strong in the past, I've been damaged. And he's an evolver who's suppressed from the god realm to the illuminator realm. I'm definitely not his match. The demonic ancestral cauldron spoke frankly, but in the end, under everyone's urging and pleading, it gathered the scattered people together and carried them on their way. Motherf ** Ker, throw caution to the wind. If we're going to die, then we'll die together. Let's go slaughter the god. A group of people shouted. A hazy white light suddenly rushed up from the great abyss. Yao Yao, is that you? Kill him. The blood in Chu Feng's body was boiling with anger. He transmitted his voice over there, and called out to the woman who rushed out from the great abyss. Huh? Jiang Zhou retreated explosively and didn't care about anything else. A creature actually rushed out from the great abyss and made his hair stand on end. He dodged backward with all his might. However, it was too fast. It was so fast that even Jiang Zhou was shocked. How could there be evolvers with such speed in this universe? Qi. The sound of a sword being drawn reverberated outside the great abyss. The brilliant sword light was like the sun in the sky. It was too glaring and illuminated the darkness as it came toward Jiang Zhou. He was dodging at high speed, but at this moment, he was still panicking. It made even a character like him feel a great sense of crisis. He actually couldn't dodge it. A sword came slashing over. Blood gushed out from his neck and his head flew out diagonally. It had actually been chopped off. He went to write again and began to restore the first 2 chapters. Chapter 940. Jiang Zhou roared furiously. This was the first time he had lost his composure. His head had been chopped off by a single sword. Swoosh. The head flew backward and the body was also moving horizontally. The two quickly pieced together in an attempt to reform the body of a mirror image. Jiang Zhou's reaction was indeed fast. As expected of a god-level consciousness, his whole body glowed and his neck healed. The blood flowed back into his body, and his aura rose sharply to the limit of illumination. However, a white light flashed on the opposite side. That lady was graceful and ethereal. she swooped down once again with a rainbow-like sword light. You still want to succeed? Jiang Zhou's expression was gloomy. He used a great divine ability and the void blurred. It seemed to be within reach, but the two of them were separated by a dimensional space. This was the short distance yet worlds apart technique. At the same time, a group of people on the Vermilion ship in the chaotic zone at the edge of the Een realm universe cried out in alarm. The light in Jiang Zhou's true body's eyes rose sharply. He immediately issued an order for the mirror image evolvers to move toward the abyss to kill that lady. His body dimmed, and he once again split into an incarnation. This was his limit, and his vitality was greatly damaged. At the same time, the god-level expert Su Hong also split into 2 incarnations and set off. Since they already knew that the object that even celestial venerables desired was in Chu Feng's possession, there was no better time than now. They had to get their hands on it. In addition, there were 8 more mirror image evolvers who followed the incarnations of the 2 god-level powerhouses. Outside the abyss, Qi. The brilliant sword light was as dazzling as metal burning. It illuminated the starry sky, pierced through the so-called dimensional space, and slashed again. Jiang Zhou's divine ability was ineffective as it was broken by a single sword. It wasn't a flying sword that could destroy all techniques, but rather the user wielding a divine sword that was 3 feet long, killing all enemies. With a puff, Jiang Zhou's eyes widened in horror. His neck was slashed open again, and a large head flew out. He was furious, and at the same time, panic rose from the depths of his heart. Who was this person? She could actually behead him twice in a row. This was truly terrifying. The headless body flew backward, and the head also rapidly shuttled through the void. It wanted to escape and reassemble with the body. However, the lady in white was too fast this time. She followed him like a white bolt of lightning and didn't give him a chance. The sword light slashed again. Puff! Jiang Zhou was shocked and furious. He had been chopped in half from the waist down, and if his head was added, then he would have been chopped into 3 parts. His heart was filled with fear. He was a god, and even if he was suppressed to the Illuminator realm, he was still more powerful than an evolver of this level. He was definitely considered a demigod. However, right now, he was actually first beheaded, and then chopped in half at the waist, unable to defend himself. Jiang Zhou's first guess was that this woman's physical body was too ferocious. Even though she looked so beautiful that it was almost unreal, like a fairy from the heavens, her strength was definitely at the divine level. Divine body. He made a judgment that this lady possessed a god-level physical body. Although her gaze was slightly unfocused, she was definitely at this level. Her physical body was too fast, surpassing the thoughts of an evolver of the Illuminati level. Jiang Zhou let out a low roar and urged his damaged body with all his might. He still wanted to reconstruct his body of reflection. His blood qi overflowed into the heavens, and all kinds of densely packed golden symbols blossomed here. Even though his damaged body had been chopped in half, he was still using a secret technique to attack the lady in white. If he didn't unleash a powerful trump card, then he wouldn't have a chance and would be killed. At this place, at least 100,000 sharp swords appeared. Every one of them was constructed from a symbol, and in a split second, they transformed into a dazzling rain of swords. They were boundlessly terrifying and incomparably brilliant as they pierced towards the lady in white. The void was pierced through. This was a dance of 100,000 swords that connected the heavens and moved the earth. This was formed from the laws, and order had descended to strangle the opponent. However, the divine sword in the lady's hand trembled. She didn't brandish the sword light, but instead, ripples spread outwards with the sword as the center. They were everywhere. This was terrifying. The void seemed to be collapsing, and the rain of swords constructed from the 100,000 symbols clanked and snapped. This mournful wail caused everything to collapse. There was a huge explosion in this space. In the distance, the Black Yak and the others in the demonic ancestral cauldron felt their blood run cold. They brought along the Mastiff King's soul light and fled far away at top speed. In reality, they didn't need to say much. The demonic ancestral cauldron had already made the most correct choice. It avoided this battlefield and disappeared in the blink of an eye with its people. This cauldron's origins were ancient, and it was deeply aware of the ferocity of this place. Back then, the demonic ancestral cauldron was related to this place. In the battlefield, Jiang Zhou roared furiously. At this moment, he felt a heart-rending and bone-splitting pain. The ripples charged over and broke his 100,000 divine swords into pieces. They also attacked him until he was riddled with thousands of holes and half of his body exploded. Kill! He was reborn from a single drop of blood. His head and ruined body wanted to reassemble and develop a complete body, but at this moment, the sword light was like a waterfall. It was snow-white and brilliant as it swept over. Jiang Zhou was cleaved apart by the sword light. His body turned into dozens of pieces, and the sword intent contained terrifying laws that were currently crushing his soul light. No. Jiang Zhou roared furiously. He was truly terrified. He was actually going to be killed here? Besides, when he thought of what kind of place the abyss was, he trembled with fear. The people that jumped out from here were naturally extraordinary. At the same time, at the edge of the universe, in the primal chaos zone, Jiang Zhou's true body roared. He had condensed a total of 2 great incarnations that contained his true soul light. If he were to be strangled, his true body would also be injured and suffer serious losses. If both of his great incarnations died there, it was equivalent to taking away half of his life. At this moment, a group of people charged over. Su Hong's 2 great incarnations, Jiang Zhou's other incarnation, and the 8 illuminators made up a total of 11 people. When they charged over, Jiang Zhou's first incarnation was letting out a desperate roar. Its soul light was penetrated by a sword, and it couldn't escape even if it wanted to. It was burned into ashes and destroyed in both body and soul. In the primal chaos, Jiang Zhou's true body fell on the ground facing the sky as he coughed up blood continuously. And outside the abyss, the true battle had just begun. After the group of people saw the appearance of the white-clothed woman, they were all astonished. Her beauty was exceptional, and her white battle skirt was stained with blood. This was an empty and bright woman, but when she attacked, she was like a war fairy that was incomparably swift and fierce. Did you guys feel it? Her corporeal body is at the divine level, but there's a problem with her spiritual willpower. Take advantage of this flaw to kill her, said Su Hong. I knew it. This universe suppresses the divine level, and it's impossible for evolvers of this level to appear. Quickly finish her off, said Jiang Zhou's second incarnation with hatred. But when the white-clothed woman moved, their expressions changed. Her corporeal body was at the divine level. Even if her gaze was lax, her movements and battle awareness were still unparalleled. A sword flew out, and it was only the first move, yet it made an illuminator bleed from the space between his brows. After that, there was a bang as his body was split into 2. Damn it, this is the abyss. Why isn't she absorbing the energy in her corporeal body? These people were a little scared. Only after fighting fiercely at close range did they realize how terrifying this woman was. This clearly wasn't right. Kill! Shouted Jiang Zhou and Su Hong's incarnation. They joined forces with the remaining 7 illuminators and attacked frantically. They had already found the Yang realm's most valuable treasure, which was on Chu Feng's body. How could they fail at the last moment? They really wanted to snatch it away immediately. But the cruelty of this battle exceeded everyone's expectations. The divine sword in the white-clothed woman's hand was formed from the mother metal that was removed from the body of the machine race's old Vidra. It was incomparably sharp and indestructible. In this battle, over a dozen illuminator weapons were cut into pieces. Severed arms and dismembered limbs flew in the air unceasingly. An expert from the Yang realm was cut in half at the shoulder. Even his soul light was corroded by the sword light. He let out a miserable cry and dimmed all of a sudden. He had been killed. Chi. A scarlet light blossomed. Yao Yao's corporeal body brandished the sword again and beheaded one of them. After that, she spun around and swept her long sword horizontally. She cut off all kinds of weapons that were attacking her from behind and tore apart the law runes. "We can't stop her," someone cried out in alarm. "We can't kill her," another person said fearfully. After truly exchanging blows, they knew what kind of opponent they had encountered. Someone wanted to escape, but in the end, a white light flashed and his clothes fluttered. The white-clothed woman chased after him and killed him with a slash from behind. She followed up with another slash to extinguish his soul light. This was universally shocking. Experts at the illuminator level were extremely difficult to kill. After their soul light dissipated, they could escape and quickly regenerate. But now, after being swept by the white-clothed woman's brilliant sword light, they had nowhere to go and nowhere to hide. Even their soul light was obliterated. "Let's go." Su Hong turned around and left. One of his incarnations had already been seriously injured during the short battle. He didn't want to fight here for too long, so he quickly fled into the void. But a sword flew over like a fairy from beyond the heavens. That white-clothed woman was too fast and incomparably transcendent. She and her sword fused into one and arrived behind Su Hong. She pierced through the protective laws and cleaved him into two. At the edge of the universe, in the primal chaos, Su Hong's true body fell on the large ship. Blood flowed from his 7 orifices, and he was severely injured. This battle shocked everyone. Regardless of whether it was the cultivators from the underworld universe or the Yang realm, they were all petrified and had goosebumps. Clang, clang, clang. The sword light was like a rainbow. The 8 illuminators who rushed over from the Yang realm universe were now killed one after another. This white-clothed woman's beautiful hair draped over her shoulders. She was too swift and fierce, and every attack killed one person. In the blink of an eye, all 8 of them were killed. Their corpses were scattered outside the abyss, and their soul lights were extinguished. Only Jiang Zhou and Su Hong's last incarnation were left at the scene. They were terrified. They never thought that entering the underworld universe would be so horrifying. They were killed until they had no temper. Swoosh! A white shadow flashed, and that woman attacked. She looked peerless, but the divine sword in her hand was merciless. She looked like a fairy, but now she was like a female Azura when she moved. The head of Jiang Zhou's incarnation flew up as well. His neck was slashed open by a sword, and his head was separated. Jiang Zhou felt a sense of powerlessness. He had already risked his life, but he still couldn't block it. He was decapitated. This was his second and final incarnation. The next sword fell, and sword chi surged. His corporeal body was shattered into pieces, and even the head that flew out was split open. Soul lights rushed out in an attempt to escape. After that, the woman shook her sword again. A ripple-like light beam rushed out, and all the soul lights were completely extinguished. In the primal chaos, Jiang Zhou's true body rolled around in pain. Half of his life was gone. He screamed continuously and finally fainted. 2 incarnations were completely destroyed, and the damage to him was too severe. Outside the abyss, Su Hong's last incarnation was fleeing, but he was still caught up. He was hit by a light beam that was like a comet streaking across the sky, and a sword light hacked him to death. His corporeal body was split into 2, and his soul light dissipated. Total annihilation. This group of people were all dead. The troops dispatched by the Yang realm were all killed. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.